Chu Mu thought of the identity-specific task of Almighty I. Now he has some emotions again. It seems that this Almighty I really knows more about his hobbies than he himself does. Do you like curry chicken? My mother made curry chicken today. It is her specialty. Oh, she also learned the recipe and made a mapo tofu from the Dragon Kingdom. Gwen Stacy said with Chu Mu walked to the inner room, and she asked Chu Mu expectantly. Curry chicken. Very good food. I can't think of any reason not to like it. Chu Mu has always had no prejudice against food. Moreover, this is not the curry chicken bought from Brother Asan. Chu Mu does not believe that Gwen Stacy's mother would mix chicken and curry with her bare hands without washing her hands. Mom. He's here. It's the Stan Chu I told you about. Gwen Stacy brought Chu Mu to the living room, then quickly ran to the corridor, shouting in the direction at the end of the corridor a sound. The kitchen of Gwen's house is far away from the door. This is why Chu Mu stood at the gate and talked on the phone with Gwen Stacy for so long, but there was no movement in the house. Gwen Stacy's mother is busy in the kitchen. Following Gwen Stacy's shouting, a middle-aged woman wearing a cooking apron walked out of the kitchen while wiping her hands with paper. Gwen's mother is probably in her 40s now, and if she can leave such a beautiful girl like Gwen Stacy, this mother naturally has the beauty of her motherland. Even though time has left traces of wind and frost on her cheeks, there are wrinkles that are difficult to hide at the corners of her eyes and forehead. But as the saying goes, beauty is in the bones but not in the skin. From Gwen's mother's face, we can still see that the charm of a beauty that has never been defeated over time still remains. Good evening, Auntie, I am Chu Mu. Please forgive me for disturbing you. Chu Mu introduced herself to Gwen's mother very politely. Modesty enough. Are you the boy who tricked me into getting engaged? Gwen's mother looked at Chu Mu. She was probably very satisfied with Chu Mu's image. Her tone did not carry any serious feeling, but rather a sense of humor. Just a joke. I didn't think carefully about this matter. It's also my fault that I was too young and ignorant and didn't think of asking for your consent before proposing. Chu Mu is very familiar with how to deal with this kind of situation. In fact, his age is not much older than Gwen Stacy. It is reasonable to say that he is ignorant. Young people are easy to be impulsive, so he proposed marriage on impulse. Does it make it easier to accept it if you think about it this way? Facing Chu Mu's humble and sincere attitude, Gwen's mother could see that she was also very satisfied. You are indeed not considerate. As long as Gwen likes it, we will have no objection. She has always been an independent child. We believe Gwen is not mistaken. The smile on Gwen's mother's face became more obvious. After all, it is Gwen's first love, and the current situation is that she is already engaged. As Gwen's mother, she naturally does not want the two of them to be unhappy. As for the problem of Gwen not being an adult yet, this is not an unacceptable problem in Europe and the United States. As long as they have a mature mind, there are many people in Europe and the United States who fall in love and even have children at an early age. Gwen's mother was actually very satisfied with Chu Mu, her daughter's fiancé. At least she felt much more at ease than her daughter bringing back a careless boy. It can be said that today's Gwen's mother is like a mother-in-law looking at her son-in-law. The more she looks at her, the happier she becomes. Chu Mu is 1.87 meters tall and has a body full of security. Coupled with her handsome appearance, decent and humble temperament, Gwen's mom's teammate Chu Mu couldn't be more satisfied. Chu also brought you gifts. Gwen Stacy could also see her mother's satisfaction, and she was even more happy. She immediately told Chu Mu that she had brought gifts. Did you bring any gifts? Gwen's mother's eyes were filled with expectation. After all, this is my first time to visit you, so I'm definitely embarrassed to come empty-handed. Chu Mu immediately walked back to the living room of Gwen's house and carried the 3 gifts he had brought before to the corridor. You were really thoughtful enough to buy so much. And red wine. If Gwen's father comes back, he will probably laugh from ear to ear. That guy's favorite thing is drinking. Gwen's mother happily accepted the gift, but she didn't immediately check the contents of the gift box. You can only tell from the outer packaging of the wine that it contains red wine. Gwen's mother didn't know much about the brand of red wine. You don't have to buy so many things when you come here in the future. You are still young and you still need money. Well, it seems that Gwen's mother doesn't know Chu Mu's identity very well. Chu Mu recalled from the information she had received previously, the information about Gwen Stacy's family, that Gwen's mother was the most traditional housewife, and she didn't like to go out and chat with others. My hobby is watching family soap operas. Because Gwen's father is a policeman, Gwen's mother also doesn't like to watch the news. She is afraid that she will see some bad news in the news. After all, in the United States, especially in New York, the police are completely high-risk professions. Such people are probably the rare people who don't know that Chu Mu is Homelander. I don't even know Chu Mu is a billionaire. How should I put it? This probably has something to do with the fact that she never thought that her daughter would be engaged to a celebrity. Otherwise, if you just search on the internet, you can probably find information about Chu Mu. Gwen's mother took the gift but felt from the packaging that the gift was not cheap. It's not too expensive, and it won't affect my financial situation. Chu Mu couldn't show off his financial strength, so he could only express tactfully that his finances were pretty good. You kid. Gwen's mother's smile became even brighter. Suddenly, there's still soup simmering in my pot. After remembering that there was something else going on in the kitchen, Gwen's mother quickly placed the gifts and then hurriedly ran towards the kitchen. Gwen, take your fiancé to the living room to sit down. I still have a few dishes to prepare. Your father will probably be back soon. Gwen's mother also told Gwen Stacy to take good care of Chu Mu. She even directly called him Chu Mu as Gwen's fiancé. It can be seen that Chu Mu has passed the test with her, which can be regarded as recognizing the relationship between Chu Mu and Gwen. Maybe I should go and help. My cooking skills are pretty good. Chu Mu definitely knew that the Gwen family would not let him go to the kitchen to cook, but he still had to ask politely. This is a truth that anyone who has met a parent understands. No, my mother's cooking is also very delicious. If you are hungry, you can have some bear biscuits first. Gwen Stacy took Chu Mu back to the living room, and she rummaged through the living room to find some bag of biscuits. This is her favorite snack on weekdays. If I'm full now, how will I behave at the dinner table later? I definitely have to save my stomach to let your mother know that I really like her food. Chu Mu said jokingly. He relies on the digestive ability of Level Godfather's life. In fact, even if he eats 10,000 cows, he will never feel bloated or uncomfortable in his stomach. I didn't expect you to care so much about my mother's opinion. Gwen Stacy's face was flushed and she looked very happy. Chu Mu cares about her family, which makes her feel very happy. Definitely, that is my future mother-in-law after all. Chu Mu said seriously, making Gwen Stacy's shy ears start to turn red. Thank you. Gwen Stacy took the initiative to give Chu Mu a big hug. This made Chu Mu feel soft again, and there was also a good smell of Gwen's body fragrance. Maybe we can take it a step further. Women will become extremely proactive when they are moved. The same was true for Gwen Stacy. Although her voice was almost like a mosquito due to nervousness, she still boldly sat on Chu Mu's lap. Just like that, Chu Mu sat on the sofa and encountered Gwen Stacy's red lip attack. Warmth. Soft. Gwen Stacy couldn't show any skills because she had no experience, but Chu Mu, as an experienced driver, definitely knows how to guide. Someone else's mother was cooking in the kitchen, while he was holding someone else's daughter and kissing her in the living room. This feeling was really a little exciting. Identity-specific mission completed. Just as Chu Mu was guiding Gwen Stacy, suddenly, a prompt message popped up in the almighty eye, in his mind. What the hell? Chu Mu, who was still immersed in the game, was a little confused after hearing this prompt. He quickly checked the identity-specific tasks about Gwen. Identity-exclusive mission. Get your fiancé for the first time. Task reward. Charming. The original identity-exclusive mission suddenly became completed, and Chu Mu immediately received the reward for this identity-exclusive mission. The charismatic charm that can increase the attractiveness to women is unknowingly blessed by Chu Mu. At the moment, Chu Mu's mood is a little complicated. It turns out. The first kiss is also the first time. Chu Mu felt a moment of indescribability, but the groping on his hands did not stop. When I grow up. We will. Gwen Stacy was still a little shy and could not fully express her thoughts. This situation. Chu Mu could clearly guess what Gwen Stacy wanted to say without having to pry into Gwen Stacy's memory. Isn't it a real extraordinary battle? This is great. It's not that I'm interested in sex, it's mainly because I don't want young girls. Chu Mu silently made an excuse for herself in her heart. Facing Gwen Stacy's shy expression, he nodded naturally. Both of them were tacitly understanding each other. And at this time, suddenly there was the sound of unlocking from the direction of the door. The sound is actually very subtle. The kind of sound that normal people would never hear. However, Chu Mu and Gwen are not ordinary people. Both of them have extremely keen hearing, so they can hear the movement of the door very clearly. It's my dad who's back. Gwen Stacy was like a frightened little rabbit. She immediately jumped up from Chu Mu's lap and arranged her clothes in a panic. Chu Mu still has some unfinished ideas, but he could only watch Gwen tidy up her clothes with some regret. How to say, it's a good thing to be interrupted. The mood will definitely be ruined. It's just the person who ruined his good deeds, and he can't go to him to argue with him. Chu Mu looked in the direction of the door, even if the living room was several blocks away from the door. Wall. But he could also clearly see that the person outside the door who was opening the door was indeed Gwen's father, Officer George. Eating someone else's daughter's tofu at someone else's house is definitely not something that should be publicized. What a nonsense day. The FBI still likes to interfere in our affairs as always. I really don't know what they are so proud of. Officer George, like most middle-aged men, would complain about work when he got home, dragging his uniform in the corridor and yelling. Isn't it just that the authority is higher? The detectives inside are not necessarily any better than us. I haven't seen many of the cases they took over that can be successfully solved. Officer George had just hung up his clothes when he saw Gwen walking out of the living room. Dad. Today my boyfriend came to the house. Can you not start talking about your work as soon as you come back? Gwen Stacy complained with a look of shamelessness. Towards. I almost forgot, it's all the damn FBI. Officer George was slightly stunned at first, and then he subconsciously planned to complain. However, after seeing Chu Mew who came out after him, his complaints stopped abruptly, and the expression on his face immediately changed his style. Sorry, people tend to be verbose when they get older. My name is George, Gwen's father. Today should be the first time we meet. Should I call you Stan Chu, or the famous Homelander? Officer George stepped forward and extended his hand to Chu Mew in a friendly manner. Obviously, he was not as ill-informed as Mother Gwen. How could Officer George, a police officer, not investigate secretly about his daughter's suddenly engaged boyfriend? When he learned Chu Mew's identity at first, Officer George was shocked. Whether it was Chu Mew's status as a billionaire or Homelander, it made him feel a little different. It's an incredible fantasy. How could my daughter have such a fiancé? Even as a well-informed police chief, Officer George didn't know whether he should be proud or worried about his daughter's good vision for a long time. Fortunately, Chu Mew didn't have any bad criminal record in the police station or the media. Only then did Officer George accept the current reality after digesting it for a long time. His daughter was found. The most powerful man in the world is her boyfriend and they are engaged. Just call me by my name. Actually, I don't like the name Homelander. He is just a character I play in the TV series. Chu Mew smiled wryly and shook hands with Officer George. Everyone said it was your autobiography. Officer George smiled teasingly. Facing Chu Mew, who was said by the news media to be powerful enough to withstand nuclear bombs, Officer George was actually under a lot of pressure. Fortunately, he is not with Chu Mew now. It feels like. He felt a sense of arrogance, which made him feel slightly relieved. Actually, it's not that, it's just that the public likes to engage in these gimmicky topics. Chu Mew will definitely be patient with Gwen's father. I also don't think you have that kind of lawless character. At least in all these years, I've never heard of you doing anything wrong based on your ability, right? Look at that playboy Tony Stark. He has built a high-tech suit of armor. After just a short time, he already wants the whole world to know that he is a superhero. You are much better than him. Officer George also has his own judgment about Chu Mew. He feels that Chu Mew has lived a low-key life for so many years and his personality is definitely not the kind of publicity that Homelander should have. How to say? It is true that a middle-aged policeman who is well-read in society cannot be underestimated. Listening to Officer George's judgment, Chu Mew felt that she had finally met someone who understood her. It's time to eat. Just at this time, Gwen's mother also prepared sumptuous meals. Everyone immediately stopped talking and moved to the dining room. During a harmonious dinner with parents, Chu Mew and Gwen's parents got along very well. By the way, Chu, do you know Spider-Man? When talking about the recent security issues in New York, Officer George suddenly asked Chu Mew. Hear this question from him. Gwen, who was sitting next to Chu Mew, was still devouring curry chicken. Suddenly, her whole body tensed up in an instant. Gwen's ability suddenly became aroused. Gwen's hair stood on end immediately. Gwen Stacy's eating movements stopped instantly, but except for Chu Mew, the other two people at the dinner table did not notice anything unusual about her. After all, no parent would have imagined that their sweet little cotton-padded jacket, who had always been well-behaved and obedient, would have some terrible secrets that he kept from his family. Chu Mew only glanced at Gwen Stacy. He just felt funny in his heart. This little girl's reaction is indeed a bit stressful. Still too young. I don't know what a city is at all. As a New Yorker, who doesn't know Spider-Man? He is a good neighbor of New Yorkers. Chu Mew responded to Officer George with a natural expression. Even if he no longer turned to look at Gwen Stacy, he could still feel Gwen Stacy's nervousness at the moment. In the changed history of Almighty I, Gwen Stacy did not tell anyone that she was a female Spider-Man. Naturally, this also includes Chu Mew, her fiancé, and her parents. It seems that many superheroes have a similar situation. In fact, this situation is actually quite understandable. Gwen Stacy obviously doesn't want other people to care about her. Chu Mew felt it didn't matter. If Gwen Stacy wanted to hide it, he could pretend not to know. This situation was actually quite interesting. Chu Mu even felt a little regretful. He was too well known and couldn't hide it. The situation of one's own transcendence. Otherwise, a drama similar to Mr. and Mrs. Smith might be interesting. This movie tells the story of two agents who don't know each other's identities. From meeting to falling in love, each concealed their identity during the period, and then by chance they were chosen. The story of the other party is the target of the mission. I also know that guy who likes to climb over walls. I heard that Spider-Man will also help the old lady cross the road, Gwen Stacy's mother said with emotion on her face. While talking, seeing that the dishes on the table were almost eaten, she picked up the big pot in the middle and said, "I'll serve you some more curry chicken. There are still a lot of dishes for dinner today. Even though there are no expensive ingredients, every food tastes quite good, even the mapo tofu that doesn't look very good. It's obvious that Gwen's mother has put a lot of thought into it, and Chu Mu thinks it's more authentic than many Chinese restaurants in the United States. At least the numbing smell has been reflected. The chicken cooked by my aunt is very delicious." Chu Mu praised Gwen's mother's craftsmanship. "Ha ha ha, as long as you like it." Gwen's mother walked out carrying the big pot with a smile on her face. "What were we talking about just now?" "Yes, Spider-Man." Chu Mu looked at Gwen Stacy, who was slightly relaxed next to him, and he deliberately brought the topic back with some bad taste. Gwen Stacy immediately became nervous again. "Yes, Spider-Man." "Chu, are you and Spider-Man acquaintances?" Officer George still didn't notice that his daughter was allergic to the term Spider-Man. After saying that, he probably felt that his way of speaking might be misunderstood as initiating an interrogation, so he quickly added another sentence. "This is just a little curiosity of mine, wondering whether superheroes like you have a unique social circle." As Officer George spoke, Gwen, who was sitting next to Chu Mu, never put any food in her mouth. She was constantly stirring the food on the plate, feeling a little restless, praying over and over in her heart that this topic could be ended quickly. The social circle of superheroes. Maybe there is such a circle, but it's a pity that I don't know about it. Speaking of superheroes, I know Tony Stark, and I have some friendship with him. He is indeed a very show-off guy. Chu Mu's way of speaking was very clever. He did not admit or deny that he knew Spider-Man, so strictly speaking, he was not lying. Regarding Officer George calling himself a superhero, Chu Mu did not correct him. After all, he wanted to leave a good impression on Gwen Stacy's parents. There is not a single police officer in New York who would like that stinky rich man Stark. Officer George had a very low opinion of Tony Stark. Very normal. Before metamorphosis, Tony Stark, as the most famous playboy in New York, lives a bohemian life and is definitely the person who gives the police the most headaches. I don't like that playboy either. He's just a walking teddy. I heard he's even infected with AIDS. Gwen Stacy seized the opportunity and tried to use a hot rumor to shift the topic from Spider-Man to Tony Stark's incurable disease. "Where did you hear that?" Officer George did take the bait. I saw the news on Twitter before." Gwen Stacy answered guiltily. She definitely didn't see any Twitter messages, she just wanted to change the conversation at the dinner table to other aspects. "The news on Twitter is unreliable. Don't believe the lies on it." Officer George's tone was filled with disappointment for some reason. "Yeah, I understand." Gwen Stacy nodded obediently. Her goal was achieved. Naturally, they started feasting again. Chu Mu is kind-hearted. No more teasing the girl's nerves. However, "Yes, Chu, have you ever seen a white Spider-Man? There is more than one Spider-Man active in New York recently. I have some doubts that Spider-Man is an experimental product of the military. If it weren't for Gwen, Officer George, Stacy's father will probably be scolded by Gwen Stacy in her heart." As soon as he spoke, the topic was brought to Spider-Man again. Not only that, it was directly led to the Spider-Man in white uniform, Gwen Stacy. At the moment, she felt that her heart was almost stopping. White Spider-Man? Doesn't he just refer to her ghost spider? I heard something. Chu Mu heard Gwen Stacy's current heartbeat. After a brief pause, it soared to about 200 beats per minute. He suppressed the smile in his heart and answered Officer George seriously, "My company's employees and I agreed that it should be a woman." Since it was Gwen's father who started the topic, Chu Mu can't be blamed for fanning the flames. He just told the truth. What bad intentions could he have? Well, just like the judgment in our police station, the white Spider-Man should be a female spider. Officer George sighed. I don't know if more Spider-Men will appear in the future, and there will be many overriding spiders. It's not a good thing to be above the law. Definitely, Chu, I'm not talking about you. I know you were dealing with big things. Officer George was also worried that Chu Mu would misunderstand. This female Spider-Man has been very active recently. Chu Mu pretended not to realize why the fiancé next to her was in such a panic. Spider-Man is active much more frequently than the previous Spider-Man. I guess it's because of his new debut, so it has the blessing of freshness. Officer George's expression looked very depressed. Originally, we only had to track down one Spider-Man, but now it's become two. The new female Spider-Man even has anti-reconnaissance methods, so that her range of activities and movement tracks can't be found. Female Spider-Man has counter-reconnaissance means. Isn't it because of you? Chu Mu only felt a little bit suppressed in her heart. Why are you tracking down the Spider-Man? Gwen Stacy finally couldn't help it anymore. She looked at her father with a puzzled look on her face. Both Spider-Men are doing good deeds and helping the weak. Fight criminals, and no citizens will be persecuted by Spider-Man, right? This is because I want to avenge myself. Are you also a fan of Spider-Man? Officer George was a little surprised. He had never seen his daughter before and raised the topic of Spider-Man at home. Ah. Gwen Stacy's expression was slightly panicked. Definitely not. I just saw that my friends have good comments about Spider-Man, especially the white Spider-Man. I heard that she just appeared. It didn't take long before some young people regarded her as their idol. If it were another place, another venue, or another communication partner, Gwen Stacy would be a little complacent when she said this. Her current popularity. Really catching up to another Spider-Man? How should I put it? In addition to the better image, it also has something to do with Gwen Stacy's diligence. She is active for much longer every day than the other Spider-Man. Chu Mu is one of the few people who understands this. Although Aunt May's current job and salary are very generous, Peter Parker's habits over the years still make Peter Parker often work 3 or 4 jobs at the same time. As a workaholic, Peter Parker has definitely been a superhero for much less time than Gwen Stacy. Child, the love of young people does not mean that it is absolutely correct. Vigilantes are not real police. Officer George began to educate Gwen Stacy earnestly. If you can ignore the law by doing good things, then how can the department's credibility be maintained? This is a question worth pondering. This is also the reason why in the normal timeline, Tony Stark would try his best to promote Avengers and be suppressed by the official department. Tony Stark is not a person who follows the rules. He just matured and saw problems that other superheroes were not aware of. This is what Officer George calls judicial credibility today. But Gwen Stacy received an education from a police family since she was a child, and she definitely understands what her father said. She tries her best to continue to defend Spider-Man's reputation. However, all of a sudden, but I couldn't find anything to say. Could it be said that Spider-Man has not done bad things? Gwen Stacy can only guarantee that she has not done bad things. Gwen Stacy actually understands the truth. Even the things the other Spider-Man does are good things. But if there are really more and more vigilantes, and there will be a mixed bag of good and bad, no one can guarantee that every vigilante has no selfish motives. In fact, if there are many people acting as vigilantes, it is absolutely 100% certain that someone will take the opportunity to commit a crime. This is simply unavoidable. It is the root of human nature. If you can ignore the law by using the name superhero, then the term superhero will eventually become a tool used by criminals to protect themselves. Chu Mu also expressed agreement with Officer George's statement. Do you think so too? Sure enough, what your black robe picket wants to tell everyone is about the issue of judicial credibility. Officer George showed a very happy and relieved expression. How could Chu Mu respond to this? He could definitely only smile and nod. To be honest, Chu Mu couldn't understand why he just filmed the Black Robe in the Marvel Universe, but now the TV series has become more and more Hamlet-like. There are 1,000 interpretations of the Black Robe in the minds of 1,000 people. Is this a concrete manifestation of the talents of every human being in the Marvel Universe? So scary. If you find Spider-Man, it's the white Spider-Man, will you arrest her? Gwen Stacy was also a little confused. But she didn't feel like she had done anything wrong. It seems that you like the white Spider-Man very much. Yes, after all, a female superhero must be very attractive to you girls. Officer George thought he had seen through Gwen Stacy's psychology. He did not doubt that his daughter's motives were impure, and said without warning, in fact, whether it's the white Spider-Man or the previous Spider-Man, we don't care. I plan to let them go, and I have made a very detailed plan for my subordinates in the bureau. Speaking of capture plans, Officer George showed pride. He was able to achieve his current status all because of his clever brain, and he worked out plans that helped him solve major cases. Ba Kai. Ba Kai. Chu Mu silently stuffed a piece of chicken into his mouth. He felt Officer George's emotions and was very curious if Officer George knew that the so-called white Spider-Man was at this dinner table. If so, what a wonderful expression Officer George will show. Plan. Dad. What's your plan? Well, I mean, that's Spider-Man. For a character who can fly over walls, those methods you used before can work. What does it do? Gwen Stacy seemed to be curious about her father's smart brain. In fact, she wanted to spy on the military. In order not to be caught by her old self in the future, Gwen Stacy played the role of a curious baby. For such a character, you definitely can't use ordinary methods, but it doesn't bother me. Officer George didn't know Gwen Stacy's little thoughts. He has always had the habit of sharing his work with his family. Naturally, he was not defensive about his family and started talking immediately. I don't know. Gwen Stacy, who was listening extremely seriously, was now completely a leaky little cotton-padded jacket. While listening, she was planning how to prevent the police from planning. Bakai. Chu Mu didn't interrupt either. He turned to look at the TV in the dining room. Because of Officer George's career, he needed to pay attention to breaking news in the news. In Gwen's dining room, there is a TV that is turned on at all times during meals. Gwen's mother didn't like to watch the news because she was afraid of seeing the news of Officer George's death, but for Officer George, it was a professional necessity. Also, we are already analyzing the fighting methods of the two Spider-Men and have found a way to subdue the two Spider-Men. What is the specific method? You still like hearing this? Definitely, after all, it is Spider-Man. I am definitely curious about how you will deal with them, especially the white female Spider-Man. The exchange between father and daughter was heartwarming. A loving father and a filial daughter. Officer George gave an unreserved explanation and analysis. Gwen Stacy nodded frequently, and her knowledge of counter-reconnaissance began to increase crazily. After all, it comes from the knowledge of the police chief. The experience value will definitely increase quickly. Gwen Stacy is a smart girl who learns everything quickly. I guess with just this little time of learning, those policemen in the future will have to wonder why the white spider. The night will be as cunning as a divine help. This is too much punishment. Chu Mu silently glanced at Officer George, who seemed to be telling a story to his daughter, with a lively expression. He seemed to have predicted Gwen Smith. After Daisy's identity was exposed, Officer George was investigated by an internal investigation and was charged with conspiracy, and was taken to court in the future. Can only say, Gwen Stacy's operation is indeed a show. When kid comes, I'm afraid he'll have to call the experts directly. Chu Mu pretended to watch TV, but was filled with emotion in her heart. The Phantom Thief kid in Detective Conan would not even dare to do such a thing, and the exposure of kid's identity would at most result in the loss of a father-in-law. Anyway, it's definitely not as good as Gwen Stacy's deceiving behavior. This is really the kind of thing that leaks air, the kind that leaks an 8-level tornado. Chief George of the New York Police Department was very eloquent and emotional. He did not realize that he was leaking police secrets to a criminal. Just when Gwen Stacy had almost exhausted all the NYPD's cards, Gwen's mother just came back from the kitchen with a pot of food. The leftover dishes were a little cold in the kitchen, so it took me some time to heat them up. Come and have a try. I also cooked some potatoes in it. Gwen's mother is busy in the kitchen again after a while. He came back so slowly that he could not interrupt his husband earlier to reveal the secrets of the police station. Chu, you should eat more. Curry chicken is my wife's favorite recipe. Officer George finally stopped revealing the secrets of the New York Police Department. How to say? In fact, he had already told most of them. Anyway, Gwen Stacy was satisfied with what she heard and had already planned various plans in her mind to deal with the New York police. My mother's specialty dish, I couldn't make it so delicious according to the recipe. Gwen Stacy, who was in a good mood, stood up and filled another bowl for Chu Mu. It's really great. Chu Mu praised him from the bottom of his heart. He has eaten in many Indian restaurants, and Gwen's mother's curry chicken tastes very good compared to those restaurants. Ha 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 ha. Thank you for the compliment. I usually have nothing to do and just like to think about how to cook. If you like it, I will write down the recipe for you later. Gwen's mother said with a smile on her face. Very generous recipes can be shared. Really? Thank you so much. Chu Mu also responded with a smile. In fact, he didn't need Gwen's mother to share the recipe at all. It wasn't because he didn't care about it, but because of his status as a genius chef. He had basically restored the recipe of curry chicken in his mind after taking 2 or 3 bites. Practice. Definitely. Even if it's not needed. Can't express it either. Anyone who has passed the test of emotional intelligence can understand it. We are all a family, so there is no need to be so polite. Gwen's mother had a heartfelt smile on her face, and the recipe can't compare to the gift you gave us, right? Jay Wen's mother's words. Officer Jean George raised his eyebrows. And there are gifts? He also just found out about this. Definitely, he spent a whole afternoon giving you carefully selected gifts. Gwen Stacy moved closer to Chu Mu. He spoke for his man. It's been a long time since I received a gift from someone else. Officer George seemed quite looking forward to it. His position meant that he needed to be very cautious in accepting gifts. Definitely. You can still accept gifts from your future son-in-law. Speaking of which, this child also brought a bottle of wine. I should have brought it over and opened it just now. Gwen's mother got up and went to the corridor to take in all the gifts that Chu Mu had handed her before. This is Pola's skincare product. At this time, Gwen's mother saw the logo on the gift bag purchased by Chu Mu for her. Pola was established in 1946. It is one of the 4 major celebrities in the cosmetics industry in the island country and is the top brand of high-end cosmetics in the island country. It is also ranked among the top 10 skincare products in the world. In fact, Gwen's mother is not too familiar with this kind of luxury brand. Therefore, I didn't recognize the brand of cosmetics until now. This is thanks to her having a rich friend who uses this brand of skincare products on daily basis. Oh my god, kid. Why did you buy such an expensive thing? I heard that a daily set of this kind of cosmetics costs tens of thousands of dollars. Gwen's mother did not show an expression of surprise. Instead, she felt a little frightened and did not even dare to open the cosmetics packaging box. Gwen Stacy was also a little dumbfounded. She is naturally beautiful and has never used any cosmetics or skincare products. In fact, she doesn't know the brand, but she heard her mother's words about tens of thousands of dollars. Gwen Stacy vaguely remembered that the forbidden animal husbandry had clearly said before that it was appropriate. Is this Chu Mu's sense of proportion? Tens of thousands of dollars in chemicals? Didn't I tell you not to buy expensive things? Gwen Stacy took a breath, leaned next to Chu Mu and asked in a low voice. Yeah. For me, these gifts are really not expensive. Chu Mu blinked, and his answer made Gwen Stacy speechless. I don't know how to answer it all. Is this how billionaires spend money like water? Gwen Stacy only feels that her imagination is really limited. If something worth tens of thousands of dollars is not expensive, then how much does it cost? This red wine doesn't look cheap either. Gwen's mother opened the red wine package and took out a wooden box from inside. After seeing the name engraved on it, she almost lost her grip on the wooden box in her hand. No wonder Gwen's mother had such a reaction. The name Romani Conti. Even people who don't drink red wine will definitely be familiar with it. This is definitely a red wine full of legend. When it comes to the Romani Conti winery in the Burgundy region, even the owners of the top Bordeaux wineries will express high respect. Count Alexander de Lusalis, an old aristocrat who has been at the helm of the Equum winery, one of the top wineries in Bordeaux, for more than 30 years, once mentioned that in his family, Romane can only be talked about softly and respectfully. Conti is a dreamy wine. Even in Europe and America, Romane Conti's name is also familiar. The price of an ordinary Romani Conti is no longer within the reach of ordinary people. Looking at the 4 numbers 1978 on the bottle of Romani Conti given by Chu Mu, Gwen's mother could not even imagine the age of this bottle. I'm almost catching up on how much my red wine is worth. Can I still return these things now? My child, the money should be spent where it is needed. This is too wasteful. You'd better return it as soon as possible. Gwen's mother was afraid that she would break the red wine, so she quickly put the red wine in the box on the table. She probably thought that Chu Mu wanted to leave a good impression on them, so she spent a lot of money. Although she felt happy, she also didn't want to accept such a gift. For her, Chu Mu has this heart, which proves that Chu Mu cares about Gwen. That is enough. There is no need for a young man to max out his credit card or something. Well, this is what I want. You should accept it. A few gifts will really not have any impact on my finances. Chu Mu would definitely not choose to return the product, and he couldn't say that the money was not enough for a meal. He spoke with a tactful tone as always. He couldn't tell Gwen's mother how much he was worth. He felt that doing so might be suspected of showing off, so Gwen's mother planned to say something. However, Director George, who knew a lot of information about Chu Mu, stood up and spoke for Chu Mu at this time. Oh, how can you ask someone to return a gift for someone else's child? Officer George opened his gift and said to Gwen's mother, haven't you heard of him before? He is also a famous figure in New York. Listen to your father's words. Gwen Stacy also started to help. Yes, Chu's company does a lot of charity work every year. The young girl doesn't know that the expenditure on charity can be used to deduct taxes. Not only Chu Mu's umbrella biotechnology, almost all large companies invest a large amount in public welfare projects every year. It seems that after investing huge amounts of funds to offset part of the tax, it is more mysterious how much money is actually used for public welfare. Definitely. Chu Mu's investment was real, but it was also used to deduct taxes. It's just that he didn't bother to play tricks, so it was just as much as he invested. Gwen said before that you were running a company, so your company is not small. Gwen's mother is not an ignorant person. A company that does charity every year must not be her original company. Imagine a small company. Well, it should be considered quite small. Chu Mu continues to maintain a humble attitude. He knows. Between Gwen and George, someone will definitely step forward to help him pretend. As expected. Not only that, you are too humble. Officer George chuckled lightly and gave his wife a thorough knowledge of Chu Mu's situation. The man your daughter is looking for has been ranked in the top 3 on the Forbes list for many years, and his company has become the second largest company in the world by market value this year. Officer George obviously doesn't know that Chu Mu still has a large amount of Stark Industries stock in his hands. Today's #1 company in the world is Tony Stark's Stark Industries. After all, clean energy has a far greater impact on stock prices and market value than anything else. Whoever controls energy controls global wealth. What? Gwen Stacy's mother was immediately stunned. She just felt unbelievable. The look in Chu Mu's eyes was filled with disbelief. The fiancé that his daughter brought back is actually a real billionaire? All of a sudden, Gwen's mother didn't know whether to be happy about her daughter's abilities or worried about whether her daughter could control such a man. Fortunately, Gwen's mother doesn't know Chu Mu's other identity yet. Now, after learning about Chu Mu's secular identity, Gwen's mother suddenly became more cautious. It can only be said that the concept of class is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people in the United States. Even as the wife of the police chief, when Gwen's mother faced a real chaebol, even if this chaebol was her own daughter's fiancé, she still felt a little afraid to be as casual as before, with words and expressions. Everyone became a little nervous. Auntie, you don't have to be so careful. Just like you said before, we are a family, and a family doesn't need to care about other identities, right? Chu Mu still liked the way he got along before. He began to do ideological work on Gwen's mother, and Gwen Stacy and director George next to him also helped. Yes, Chu was different from those bad capitalists. I can testify to this. The police department can't find any criminal records on him. Moreover, he has always been very approachable towards his employees. It was probably because the two people closest to me were trying to persuade me, and when Gwen Stacy was talking, she was already leaning against Chu Mu. During the next meal, Gwen's mother gradually digested the impact of Chu Mu's identity. This is really unbelievable. Sorry, kid, I just feel a little dreamy. There is a billionaire sitting on my dining table. Gwen's mother gradually accepted the fact, but she still rubbed her temples, feeling that today was an extremely crazy day. Billionaires also have only 2 eyes, 1 nose, and 1 mouth. It's actually no different. You see, I have to peel potatoes when I eat them. Chu Mu picked up a boiled potato and joked again with a slightly humorous tone. Liven up the atmosphere at the table. Just when everyone became relaxed again, Hammer Group, which lost its backbone, underwent a major shake-up and was taken over by Cooper Hammer, a member of the Hammer family, and a new senior team was formed. In order to compete with Stark Industries, which invented new energy, Cooper Hammer hired many experts to build a cutting-edge laboratory in Boston. After a period of preparation, the Hammer Group will launch a major experimental result, the particle accelerator, at 12 o'clock tonight in a cutting-edge laboratory where many scientists have gathered. Let us interview Dr. Barry Allen to see what new changes the particle accelerator in the cutting-edge laboratory will bring to our lives. A piece of news on TV. Suddenly Chu Mu's attention was attracted. Cutting-edge laboratory. Barry Allen. Particle accelerator. If these 3 terms are just used separately, it may be just a coincidence. After all, the world is so big that there will always be times when there are no surprises. However, if they appear together, the chance of being considered a coincidence is infinitely close to 0. Cutting-edge laboratories and particle accelerators are related to the origin of the Flash in the DC universe. Also, isn't the name Barry Allen the name of the Flash? Waiting for me here. To be honest, Chu Mu is now accustomed to such surprises that pop up from time to time. Not just without any surprises. On the contrary, you will suddenly feel enlightened. The arcs that appeared on Quicksilver's body suddenly have a very reasonable explanation. Isn't it the Speed Force? Even Barry Allen, the source of the Speed Force, has appeared in the Marvel Universe. The emergence of the Speed Force in the Marvel Universe is obviously a matter of course. After all, the DC Universe does not have the Speed Force, it is Barry Allen's run. Created the Speed Force. After the Speed Force is born, it will have its own thinking, and they will independently choose the host they think is suitable. In the Marvel Universe, there is definitely no speedster more qualified than Quicksilver. So that's it. Chu Mu's eyes flickered slightly. He quickly figured out the general situation in his mind. With a lot of information about the DC Universe and the Marvel Universe, it didn't require many brain cells. Isn't it because the omniscient and omnipotent Laplace's demon knows all the information in the universe that it has become a fictional life that can predict the development of all things? Although Chu Mu is far from that level, it is still quite easy to analyze the existence of the Speed Force. Not only that, I saw Barry Allen being interviewed on the TV. Chu Mu also discovered a situation. The Barry Allen who wandered into the Marvel Universe had burn marks on his face, which was very different from the Barry Allen in his impression. What accident happened to Barry Allen in The Flash? Among the information Chu Mu knew, there was a version of Barry Allen that fit this situation. God of Speed, Savitar. Chu Mu looked at the man who was talking eloquently during the TV interview. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he already had a low probability guess in his mind. Savitar. God of Speed. Although this title was given by Savitar himself, when it comes to speed, he is indeed one of the fastest people in the DC universe. Because this guy is Barry Allen himself. Strictly speaking, he is an existence called the remnant of time created by the Flash Barry Allen. Chu Mu doesn't know much about the specific formation mechanism. After all, he is not a speedster with the Speed Force. He only knows that Savitar was created by the Flash to defeat a powerful enemy by using his own speed and ability to provide him with time remnants of help. Most of the time remnants will dissipate after the use is over, but Savitar continues to exist due to some accidental reasons. He was unwilling to disappear, nor did he want to sacrifice himself for the real Barry Allen. So he built himself into Savitar, constantly traveling through time, constantly avoiding the arrival of the time that would make him disappear. It may sound a bit obscure, but the fact is that it is quite complex. There is nothing simple about the Flash and what the Flash does. Just when Chu Mu was thinking, "You seem to care about this news," Gwen Stacy, who was sitting next to Chu Mu, was keenly aware of Chu Mu's change in attention. "Well, for some business reasons, as you know, my company is also a high-tech company, so it will naturally pay more attention to its peers." Chu Mu did not explain the reason in detail, explaining that Gwen Stacy might not understand it either. Indeed, the competition among high-tech companies is much more brutal and fierce than in ordinary industries. "Boy, let me turn up the volume for you." Gwen's parents also had no doubts about him. When they heard that Chu Mu was concerned about work, they didn't feel that there was anything wrong with Chin Mu suddenly watching TV. Gwen's mother also used the remote control to help Chu Mu turn up the volume. It was completely unnecessary, but Chu Mu still smiled and thanked her. "Dr. Barry Allen, may I ask why this particle accelerator is hailed by you as a masterpiece that can change the entire world?" In the TV, the reporter was interviewing Savita, who was unaware that her identity had been exposed. "Let's call him Barry Allen. There is nothing wrong with this. The remnant of time is also equivalent to the speedster himself. It is no exaggeration to say that my research in the quantum field is ahead of the entire European Commission for Nuclear Research, at least for hundreds of years. The changes that my particle accelerator can bring to the entire world are definitely much greater than that guy in New York who is swaying in the sky and thinks he is very fast." The disfigured version of Barry Allen chatted in front of the camera, and he even took the opportunity of the interview to diss Iron Man Stark. It can be seen that this guy has been in the Marvel Universe for a long time. Definitely, it could also be that he used the abnormal learning speed of a speedster to get to know many people and things in this world. In fact, Tony Stark's steel armor is definitely not slow, at least it is much faster than most fighter jets. Coupled with its own flexibility, the steel armor can outplay most fighter jets. It is estimated that only the fastest people will look down on the speed of the steel armor. Change the whole world. The reporter had heard many similar remarks and was unfazed, but she still pretended to be shocked and surprised. They should cooperate with the performance and know what the program effect is. Yes, the changes are definitely beyond your cognition. You may not understand when I describe it this way, so I can give you an analogy. Said. The disfigured version of Barry Allen took out a pen and lightly touched a small black dot on a whiteboard that had been prepared behind him. This is the scope of our human understanding of the universe today. The disfigured version of Barry Allen pointed to the small black dot on the whiteboard and told reporters. He was about to continue. "That's just a black spot. What's the scope of human understanding of the universe?" A fat visitor outside the camera interrupted the words of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. "I'm talking about it as an analogy, comparing it to the scope of human knowledge of the universe." The disfigured version of Barry Allen pursed his lips and looked at the person who interrupted, seemingly gentle. Actually, there was already a hint of anger in his eyes. Unlike the real Barry Allen, this guy's character is actually very irritable. It's just that it's difficult to get angry because of the cameras, otherwise he would rush up and take out the little fat guy's heart in a minute. But no matter what you say, it's still a small dot. Xiaopangdan looked like a bully at first glance, and he didn't know who he was provoking. His expression was a bit provocative, and when he saw the reporter's camera moving to his side, he even made a proud gesture. There are always guys like this who like to sensationalize. In Gwen's restaurant, Officer George couldn't help but comment after seeing this. On weekdays, he often encountered similar situations when he was interviewed by the media as police chief. There will always be some wise people who will jump out to make excuses, but in the face of the media, Officer George can only swallow his anger to those who make excuses. This is probably the only way they can get attention, which is really pathetic. Officer George felt the same way and also felt a little indignant. Just a joker. Chu Mu commented. Many viewers may not have noticed that the provocative behavior of Little Fatty has already made the disfigured version of Barry Allen feel cold in his eyes. An invisible arc of electricity flashed across his eyes. However, due to the fact that he was still conducting media interviews, the disfigured version of Barry Allen paid great attention to his image, and the smile on his face was always maintained. Chu Mu has no doubt that when this interview is over, a speedster will rush into Xiao Pangdun's home and leave a dead body in Xiao Pangdun's home. The disfigured version of Barry Allen is not a good person. During his time as Savitar, he definitely killed more people than most villains. The interview on the TV continued. Security, please take that troublemaker out. After the disfigured version of Barry Allen signaled with his eyes to a staff member next to him, the staff member immediately stood up and called the security guards to maintain order. You can't do this. I bought a ticket and came in. I'm going to sue you. The fat man, who weighed more than 250 kilograms, was carried away by two sturdy black security guards. The security personnel in this place were all veterans. Although they are not as good as the security personnel of Umbrella Biotechnology, it is absolutely easy to deal with a fat little guy who is a happy person every day. After all, the Hammer Group, which invested in this cutting-edge laboratory, is still a military-industrial enterprise, so the retired soldiers it can recruit will naturally not be weak. After all, a company that specializes in manufacturing fake goods must know how to identify parallel import applicants. Dodd & Cooper hammer is much more reliable than the original hammer. Chu Mu also has a certain understanding of the major forces in New York. I don't know how this Savitar persuaded the big Cooper hammer to invest in him. Chu Mu was curious about what kind of pie Barry Allen drew for the Hammer Group. To know. Among all investment projects, the cost of scientific research is definitely number one. To build a top-notch laboratory capable of launching a particle accelerator, a conservative estimate would require at least tens or even hundreds of billions of funds. Chu Mu's Umbrella Biotechnology has just recently set up a new laboratory, spending more than 30 billion on the purchase of personnel and equipment. This is not a small amount. Chu Mu just doesn't care much about money, but the Hammer family is different. It's a family well known in New York City that loves money as much as life. The Flash's ability to fill in chicken soup seems to be not weak to begin with. He is also nicknamed Talkman and has the ability to influence his opponents with his continuous words. Chu Mu was thoughtful. In the TV, Little Fatty shouted loudly before being taken away, but received no response. Soon, the interview scene once again restored the harmonious atmosphere before. Only. The expression of the disfigured version of Barry Allen was a smile, judging from the way he looked deeply in the direction where the little fat man left. Little Fatty's future fate is probably going to be either bad or bad. Okay. Let's talk about the particle accelerator again. The disfigured version of Barry E. Loon withdrew his gaze and showed the small blackboard to the camera again. As you can see, this black spot can be regarded as the scope of our understanding of the universe. As he spoke, he spent a few seconds on the periphery of the black spot with a radius of about 10 centimeter big circle, and the range I circle will be what we learn from the particle accelerator. The disfigured version of Barry Allen showed a longing expression. This is a new way of looking at physics, and it will really change the perspective from which we think about everything. Some speeches. Both voice and emotion. With infinite longing for the future. The reporter didn't know how much he understood, but he still took the lead in applauding immediately, and there was a steady stream of applause around him. The disfigured version of Barry Allen seemed to enjoy the feeling of being surrounded by others. Tonight at 12 o'clock, everyone can sit in front of the TV and witness with me that a new way of observing the universe was born in a cutting-edge laboratory. The disfigured version of Barry Allen announced matter-of-factly to the camera. This guy still looks decent. Gwen's mother commented on the disfigured version of Barry Allen on TV while eating. He looked as if he had been in a fire and was disfigured. Such a blow could not break him. He must be a person with very firm beliefs and a very persistent commitment to science. Gwen's mother likes to watch TV series on weekdays, so Lenovo ability is naturally rich. Perseverance in science. Maybe so. Chu Mu nodded noncommittally. He did not think that the disfigured version of Barry Allen created the particle accelerator because he wanted to contribute to the scientific development of the world. This thing, the biggest effect, should be to create a large number of super ability people who are radiated and integrated by dark matter, thus giving birth to super ability people. The particle accelerator sounds very powerful, Will it have an impact on your company? Gwen Stacy didn't understand cutting-edge science. She just looked at Chu Mu with concern, whose expression seemed to be thinking. As this person said, his particle accelerator may have an impact on the entire world. Chu Mu felt that the disfigured version of Barry Allen might just want to use particles. The accelerator creates people with super abilities, but he is still not sure what the purpose is. Perhaps he lost his ability for some reason and went to great lengths to build a particle accelerator just to recreate the process of obtaining the speed force? Definitely, there may be other plans. In any case, this kind of particle accelerator that can create people with super abilities is indeed enough to subvert today's world structure. I probably shouldn't have let him get what he wanted. Chu Mu waited. The disfigured version of Barry Allen is Savitar. This guy is full of evil, and there is a high chance that someone who creates super abilities will not do good things. Looking at the TV. The seemingly gentle smile of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. Chu Mu's intuition told him that Savitar's plan was definitely malicious. It might not be aimed at a specific person, but it might also be aimed at the entire Marvel Universe Earth. This guy is crazy after all. And he is also a madman who will do anything to obtain eternal life. As a remnant of time from the real The Flash Barry Allen. Savitar has always been afraid of the fate of disappearing, so he spent most of his life traveling through different times to avoid his fate. Therefore, he wants to live more than anyone else. This disfigured version of Barry Allen was able to stay in the present time for a long time, and even came out to make public appearances. Perhaps after coming to the Marvel Universe, this guy escaped the fate of being a remnant of time and being overtaken and erased by time. However, even as a real person, Savitar will never be satisfied with a mere few decades of life. His desire to live is stronger than anyone else. Speedsters are also human beings, and they will also grow old, sick, and die. It's just that their self-healing ability is better than that of ordinary people. The Speed Force will not bring much change to the lives of speedsters. In essence, they will still be mortal mortals, but they are mortal mortals who have controlled the Speed Force. There are indeed many speedsters in the DC Universe. After Barry Allen created the Speed Force, the DC Universe was almost overrun with speedsters. However, a possessor of the Speed Force may be able to run very fast and even travel through time and space, but their physical fitness is still not good enough. In this regard, Quicksilver is much better than most speedsters. He runs fast. It depends on the X gene in the body. Therefore, it also needs to bear the burden brought by high-speed movement. This also means that he can only run faster if his physical fitness reaches the standard. However, speedsters who use the Speed Force do not need to have high physical fitness at all, and their physical fitness is better than ordinary people. There is even no way to resist bullets. You can only get the bullets stuck in the muscles, and they have to be bullets fired by small-caliber firearms. Definitely. The original speed of speedsters is enough to allow them to dodge bullets or catch bullets, but all these actions rely on the bug-level Speed Force. The Speed Force can form a speed field that is like a biological force field. Under the action of this force field, the speedster can compete with the gods in a mortal body. Got it? After all, speedsters are still mortals, and their lifespans will not be much longer than ordinary people. Even Barry Allen, the creator of the Speed Force, is the same. Even though the disfigured version of Barry Allen looked like a monster when hiding in the armor, even if he didn't take off the armor, he couldn't resist the erosion of time on his life. God of Speed. I would give myself such a middle-class name. Not just because the name sounds bluffing, but because Savitar longs to live in this world forever like a true god. Chu Mu understood this guy's psychology very well, and he also felt some inner uneasiness about Savitar's behavior of creating a particle accelerator. A madman. In order to achieve the purpose. Sacrificing the entire world is no big deal. The world is destroyed. As a speedster, he can also escape to other worlds, or other timelines. Chu Mu doesn't want the reality he lives in to be persecuted by speedsters. Truth. In Chu Mu's opinion, the speedsters with the Speed Force are indeed a bit of a cancer. The DC Universe is restarted every now and then, all with the speedsters behind the island nation. Speedsters are rampant. Naturally, the number of restarts is about the same. Both humans and ghosts can restart the time. But how crazy is this kind of restart? Chu Mu before time travel. Warner, the company that built the DC Universe, believes that rebooting is the core competitiveness of the DC Universe and the eternal theme of the DC Universe. So much so that DC Universe movies and TV series cannot produce more than 2 movies in each series, and then they will be restarted by Warner management for various reasons. The Superman movie series is the worst, for decades. I have been filming the origin story, constantly facing movie reboots, and it is really a highlight of the DC Universe that I have completely grasped. Maybe I should trust my instincts. The more Chu Mu thought about it, the more he felt that Savitar, the disfigured version of Barry Allen, would definitely not do good things. He quickly made a decision. Anyway, the world he lives in, it must not be messed up by restart monsters. Would you like some more curry chicken? Gwen's mother began to divide the remaining food at the moment. Operation CD can avoid eating overnight food tomorrow. Sorry, I might need to leave early. Chu-Mu looked at the time on her watch, and it was now past 9 o'clock in the evening. He had not been to Boston. Therefore, if he wants to organize the disfigured version of Barry Allen to activate the particle accelerator, he will not be able to use the space ability of his Raven teleportation. Is it to arrange the company's strategic deployment? Son, you don't need to apologize, we are all a family. Officer George wiped his hands and spoke kindly. Are you about to leave? Gwen Stacy was a little reluctant. She had made out with Chu-Mu on the sofa tonight, and now she wanted to go out after dinner to reminisce about that experience. Gwen, you should be considerate of your man. Career is also important to men. Gwen's mother seemed to be on Chu-Mu's side. She feels that a man who is career-minded is definitely an excellent quality. As long as he is not the type who doesn't even care about his family, he is very reliable. Sorry, I'll make it up to you next time. Chu-Mu guessed Gwen Stacy's thoughts, and he kissed Gwen Stacy's cheek in a meaningful way. Gwen Stacy definitely understood Chu-Mu's hint. Her face was flushed. Looks very happy, at the moment. Xiao Nizi has already started planning in her mind. She must learn some skills online these days and give Chu-Mu an exciting surprise. Child, come and sit here more often when you have time. Gwen's family sent Chu-Mu to the gate. Chu-Mu declined the idea of a few people to give another piece away. After he walked to the main road alone, he soared into the sky and quickly entered the clouds. In the night, flying quickly towards Boston. On the roadside of the street, no one witnessed his behavior. Except for the slums in the Great Free Country, most residential communities are different from the communities in the Dragon Country. There are not too many people living in a community. For example, the conditions in Gwen's house are pretty good. The place where they live is the kind of place where there are only a few households in a large area, and no one can be seen on the road in broad daylight. There is no need to worry about security issues. Wealthy suburb. Police patrols are very frequent every day. As long as the police are called, the police will definitely arrive at the scene within a few minutes. It's a completely different world from a place like Hell's Kitchen. Quiet. Few people. Also very safe. This is the kind of housing conditions wealthy people enjoy in the United States. In fact, in most countries, elevator buildings with dozens of floors are basically slums, inhabited by people struggling at the bottom of society. Even in those 5- or 6-story buildings, the residents would not be wealthy. Tianhao. It has a lot to do with the size of the population. In a sparsely populated country like the United States, most people with a little wealth own their own small single-family houses. The price of the house is not expensive. Definitely, it would be a tragedy if you only have enough money to buy a house and cannot pay the high property tax every year stably. Many of the homeless people on the streets are poor people who eventually lost their houses because they couldn't pay property taxes. Most of them used to be decent. However, due to the policy influence of capitalist countries, after losing the ability to make money, even the last place of residence will be taken away. Definitely. None of this has anything to do with Chu-Mu. He belongs to the exploiting class. Exploiting white people and exploiting black people is not exploiting his compatriots anyway, and he has nothing to be embarrassed about. Chu-Mu looked at Boston flight along the way. Extremely fast. It was like a meteor streaking across the sky at high speed. Wherever it passed, there would be bursts of terrifying sonic booms, which would even completely scatter the clouds. Look. Shooting stars. Someone was making a wish to him again. Just as Chu-Mu continued to approach Boston. In front of the cutting-edge laboratory that has been building momentum for a long time, there is a sea of people. There are countless people who are interested in science or researchers in related fields. They are all in the huge square, waiting for the moment that changes the world. It's Dr. Barry Allen. He came. The waiting crowd. After discovering a disfigured version of Barry Allen in a suit walking out of the confidential area of the cutting-edge laboratory, everyone burst into enthusiastic cheers. For people who like science, a person's appearance is actually not important. They admire scientists with outstanding talents. The disfigured version of Barry Allen is regarded by most science enthusiasts as a type of outstanding talent. Indeed, Barry Allen is a person with a high degree of education, and then is Savitar, who participated in Barry Allen's time, another speedster who can travel through time. He can obtain a set of advanced battle armor from the future time and space of the DC universe, and naturally he can also obtain advanced scientific knowledge from the future time and space of the DC universe. This is similar to the protagonists in those historical novels who travel to ancient times and use Tang poetry and song lyrics to pretend to be ghosts, or use the theory that saltpeter freezes when it meets water to pretend to be gods. Perhaps in the future, the knowledge that primary school students will learn in textbooks will become a great discovery that even Einstein would call immortal when taken into the past time and space. Dr. Barry Allen. I would like to ask, the weather looks a bit bad tonight. Will the particle accelerator still start as scheduled? A science enthusiast shouted worriedly. He was worried that he would miss the opportunity to witness the startup of the particle accelerator due to the weather. The sky was indeed cloudy today, and there were even a few light raindrops starting to fall. It definitely won't affect it. The disfigured version of Barry Allen responded with a smile. He signaled to the security personnel, and then the roof of the open-air square opened to protect the waiting people from the wind and rain. Crackling, crackling, the raindrops in the sky were getting bigger and bigger, hitting the transparent ceiling, making a sound that became more and more rapid like a symphony. In a short while, lightning also began to crackle outside. The heartwarming ceiling of the disfigured version of Barry Allen was raised again, which made the science enthusiasts present cheer again. No matter what the weather is like, I will be here with everyone today to witness the future. My team and I will definitely change everyone's perception of the world. The disfigured version of Barry Allen looked around at the people in the square. He was very satisfied with the number, and the smile on his face also had a hint of meaning. In his tone, with a hint of unnoticeable anticipation, we will drive the progress of dynamics in medicine. Believe me, the future will be many times more exciting than you imagine. Use your imagination. My eyes have already seen the future. The tone of the disfigured version of Barry Allen was full of intriguing thoughts. After a passionate speech, he aroused the emotions of the scene to be extremely exciting and exciting. Probably because his throat felt a little dry, the disfigured version of Barry Allen drank water first, and then looked at the time displayed on his watch. Okay, let's count down together and witness the future together. The voice of the disfigured version of Barry Allen was full of impatience. 10, 9, 8. All the science enthusiasts in the audience were excited and started counting down. However, just when the hand of the disfigured version of Barry Allen was already placed on the start button, there was a faint arc flashing in the palm of his hand due to his eagerness to try. Boom! The golden light seemed to illuminate the entire night sky at once. Light up the night like day. Extremely strong rays. In a situation that was unexpected by everyone, it fell from the sky and instantly destroyed the large building where the particle accelerator was buried. Horrible sounds. There was also movement as if the earth was shaking and the sky was shaking. Everyone at the scene felt a kind of horror like the coming of doomsday. Even the disfigured version of Barry Allen, the speedster, could not survive such a sudden accident. Reacting in time, no, it should be said that it was useless after he reacted. That laser is so fast. Ah, what happened? Damn. Explosion. The particle accelerator exploded. Is it a missile? After reacting, many people started shouting in fear, and the originally harmonious square suddenly became extremely chaotic. Some people were so frightened that they fell to the ground. Among the countless screams, roars, and cries, some people had the courage to look towards the sky. My heart's content. No. The disfigured version of Barry Allen also looked at the sky with disbelief. He couldn't believe that the layout of his plan to become a god had been destroyed before it really started. Who is it? Who sees the plan to destroy the god of speed? Don't you want to live anymore? The disfigured version of Barry Allen raised his head with a spiteful expression. Boom, in the sky. In the light of bursts of thunder, the disfigured version of Barry Allen and a group of people all saw a sky full of thunder and lightning and heavy rain, standing tall against a gray-black background. There is a figure with a strong sense of power. This figure is like a high-ranking monarch, with a terrifying majesty that looks down on all living beings. A farce. Chu Mu is condescending, overlooking the square filled with many people. The golden light in his eyes has not been completely extinguished, causing those below who raised their heads and looked in fear to feel a suffocating pressure. That's Homelander, Boston. It is the capital and largest city of Massachusetts in the United States and the largest city in the New England region in the northeastern part of the United States. It holds the title of the city with the most educated residents in the United States. Boston's economic foundation is based on scientific research, finance and technology, especially bioengineering technology. It is not without reason that the cutting-edge laboratory is a disfigured version of Barry Allen. The residents here have a natural belief in science. The reason why so many people gathered in cutting-edge laboratories in the middle of the night is because the world-famous Harvard University and MIT are both located in downtown Boston. Now, many physicists with good backgrounds and well-educated science enthusiasts gathered here under the inducement of the big cake, drawn by the disfigured version of Barry Allen. Originally, everyone planned to witness the launch and use of the particle accelerator, and then cheer to celebrate the new future research and development direction of physics. The result was unexpected. The particle accelerator was blown up before it even started. All scientists witnessed the most unscientific creature on Earth, Homelander Chu-Mu, directly destroying the future of physics in a situation that no one expected. If the military launched a missile to destroy a particle accelerator, many influential people present would definitely stand up and make indignant accusations. Even if it is a terrorist attack, there will probably be fanatics who will be angry and violent. Unfortunately, the person who destroyed the particle accelerator was Chu-Mu, the god on Earth who is not bound by any scientific rules. Extremely terrifying rays, as well as 500 ferocious explosions, all caused Chu-Mu to float under the rainy sky, and his eyes still had a scorching golden light. It seemed so suffocating that no scientists dared come out to question Chu-Mu. There was silence in the venue. The flames of the building not far away and the continuously collapsing reinforced concrete made the sound extremely loud at this moment. No. No. Why would you do such a thing? The disfigured version of Barry Allen, who regarded the particle accelerator as the basis for his own godhood, could not accept the reality and roared angrily at Chu-Mu, who was suspended in midair outside through the awning. There were yellow electric arcs surging on his body. However, even this guy with a bad temper and arrogance who called himself the god of speed did not dare to take action immediately. No way. In the rain. The black jersey on Chu-Mu is particularly eye-catching. The disfigured version of Barry Allen knows exactly what this suit represents. That is the true god on Earth who even the speedsters are afraid of. From the perspective of the disfigured version of Barry Allen, Chu-Mu must be the Superman of this parallel universe. Or the do whatever you want version of Superman without any moral restraints. Obviously, the disfigured version of Allen doesn't know that he is in another big universe. He thought he was in a special parallel universe. There was no The Flash, no many characters he was familiar with, but there was Superman's universe. As a character who came from the DC universe, the disfigured version of Barry Allen knows even better than Supergirl Kayla what kind of monster Superman is. Possessing all the memories of the original The Flash, the disfigured version of Barry Allen understands very well that Superman represents the value of the word invincible. Superman's only weakness is kindness, but judging from what he knows about this world, he doesn't see any kind qualities in Chu-Mu. Even the shirt. They all changed from brightly colored shirts to black shirts. From the perspective of the disfigured version of Barry Allen, this is the best proof that Superman has become the evil version. Why should you destroy my hard work? Destroy my future? The violent temper of the disfigured version of Barry Allen wanted him to transform into Savitar and tear Chu-Mu to pieces, but his reason is telling him that he may not be the opponent of Superman in this world. The speed force in his body was constantly surging, but the disfigured version of Barry Allen did not take any action. He just continued to roar at Chu-Mu outside the awning. Chu-Mu did not respond to this guy's thoughts. Before he took action, he had already peeked into the mind of the disfigured version of Barry Allen in the cloud. This guy. They are indeed planning some incredible conspiracies. The disfigured version of Barry Allen actually plans to use the power of a particle accelerator to transform the entire Boston into a city of super abilities. Then, he will learn from Thinker DeVoe and absorb the 9 most necessary and powerful super abilities, becoming a powerful being who not only possesses the speed force but also has a long life. Not only that. After doing all this, the disfigured version of Barry Allen also plans to rule the Earth, then find the door to open different universes, and become the master of countless dimensions in the multi-universe. Chu-Mu didn't even need to go deep into the mind of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. Chu-Mu had already observed all the plans of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. Although he is the owner of the Speed Force and has the power to reverse time and space, the disfigured version of Barry Allen's thought barrier is still similar to that of ordinary people. This is the advantage and disadvantage of the Speed Force. It can make a person extremely powerful, but the person himself does not get much strengthening. When the disfigured version of Barry Allen was speaking just now, the disfigured version of Barry Allen had been looking forward to this plan endlessly in his mind. Savitar's ambitions are great. Just as Chu-Mu had expected before, it will definitely turn the universe Chu-Mu lives in now into a messy and desolate place. Therefore, Chu-Mu would never allow the disfigured version of Barry Allen to do this. The future you want does not have my consent. Chu-Mu stared at the only figure still standing in the clubhouse, that is, the disfigured version of Barry Allen. His voice was not loud, but as a disfigured version of the speedster, Barry Allen could still distinguish his language from the shape of his mouth. You're just going too far. Do you really think I'm not your match? The disfigured version of Barry Allen was still deeply wary. But Chu-Mu's words directly ignited his anger, making him, who had always claimed to be a god, feel a deep sense of humiliation. I, the god of speed, Still need your approval for the future? Superman. You are not the only one standing in the clouds. The disfigured version of Barry Allen roared loudly, and the arcs on his body flashed crazily. Chu Mu liked the way he called Chu Mu, Superman, instead of Homelander, but Chu Mu was not satisfied with the tone of his voice and the things he planned to do on this earth. I respect you, but you don't respect me, so don't blame me for being cruel. Superman, do you think you are the only one who is a god? The disfigured version of Barry Allen's Chunibyo has definitely reached an advanced stage. He roared loudly like crazy. As the disfigured version of Barry Allen pressed a certain button, the floor near where he was standing suddenly cracked, and a lifting platform pushed the weird-looking armor directly from the ground to the ground. It was he who came to this place. The Savitar armor worn in the world. The disfigured version of Barry Allen absolutely cannot let his armor be too far away from him. He has always ensured that he can touch his armor at any time. Without the Savitar armor, there is actually no difference between him and Barry Allen. It is only because of the unusually obvious amplification effect of the Savitar armor on the Speed Force that he can truly become the fastest owner of the Speed Force, reaching the level of crushing. The speed that overwhelms other Speed Force owners. Talk about it. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to call him the god of technology. After all, most of the power of the disfigured version of Barry Allen comes from his technological equipment. It is also unknown in which era of the DC universe the Savitar armor was cast. That's the only thing about speedsters, they can make purchases in every era. I am also a god in this world. The disfigured version of Barry Allen turned into a bolt of lightning and penetrated directly into the weird-looking armor. The originally silent armor suddenly lit up, and stood up from a half-kneeling state with a rumble. Everything happened very fast. The people and scientists around him didn't have time to react, so Chu Mu could clearly see all the actions of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. Speedsters have to rely on the Speed Force to move quickly, and Chu Mu can keep up with this speed on his own. When he started running, supervision had accurately captured the disfigured version of Barry. All the tracks of Allen's actions. But he didn't stop it. Savitar? God of speed? Haha. I hope this guy can make me a little more serious. Chu Mu moved his head a little. The divine power in his body blooms in every cell, providing him with abundant vitality and terrifying characteristics that can overwhelm all gods and demons. You will pay the price for provoking the god of speed. Today is the death of Superman. Savitar's voice became sharp and cold. He jumped up. Carrying a series of lightning bolts all over his body, he flew into the air at a speed that ordinary people could not catch, directly penetrated the awning and rushed into the rain curtain. Pay the price? Haha, I'll wait and see. Chu Mu saw Savitar approaching from the bottom up, and the turbulent golden light in his eyes was swaying extremely fiercely. A battle between both sides. At this moment, it's about to happen. Savitar is very confident in his speed. The surging speed force surged on his body surface, which once helped him crush countless speedsters and kill those speedsters at many points in time. Go to hell. Superman. The high-speed movement gave Savitar terrifying inertial power. He was convinced that even if Superman withstood his punch, his bones would be broken. From Savitar's perspective, the world seemed to have come to a standstill, and the people in the standstill also included Chu Mu, who was suspended in the sky and had no reaction to his attack. He was overjoyed. What a god on earth, he is the only god. High speed. That's really strong. The level of cell activity in the body far exceeds what happens when Quicksilver is exercising. It turns out that it is the Speed Force that is stimulating the level of activity in his cells. It is precisely for this reason that his ordinary brain was able to keep up with its own speed and did not burn out directly due to overload. Actually, in Chu Mu's eyes, Savitar's speed is not too slow, but it is definitely not so fast that he can't react. He even used supervision when Savitar was approaching and penetrated the metal of Savitar's armor. In the disfigured version, Barry Allen is peered at a microscopic level. Enlarge your view. Chu Mu can observe things at the nanometer level. He saw every cell in the disfigured version of Barry Allen. There were special lightning-like energies in these cells that were constantly strengthening and protecting the abnormally active cells of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. The Speed Force is indeed magical. After Chu Mu sighed in his heart, Savitar appeared in front of him, and the fist with lightning wanted to greet him directly in the face. You don't even understand whether you hit someone in the face or not. Chu Mu's eyes were extremely calm. He just leaned back slightly, and Savitar's fist missed and hit the air in front of him. This. How is this possible? Savitar didn't expect that his fist would be dodged. Chu Mu, who was originally motionless, actually did not stand still with the world in his perception of time. But activities are as usual. Savitar was shocked at first. Does the opponent also have the Speed Force? Number. The opponent's body didn't shine with the luster that the speed force should have. Just pure speed. The speed at which the body explodes. Savitar, who realized this problem, only felt a chill of shock running down his spine, which was countless times more shocking than the shock Chumu had given him with the speed force. This guy. The anti-speed of monofilament, can he keep up with the fastest speedster in the world? If anyone had mentioned this kind of thing to Savitar before today, he would definitely laugh out loud, but now Savitar cannot laugh. Because he really met such an exaggerated guy. It's not a speedster. This. How? Is it possible? Savitar exclaimed in disbelief, and his pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a pinpoint file. Maybe I should teach you that nothing is impossible. Chumu suddenly raised his hand, and even Savitar, who was so fast, couldn't react. He was in midair at the same level as Chumu, but since he had nowhere to draw strength from, he had no way to dodge Chumu's hand that directly grabbed his arm. When I jumped up before, Savitar really didn't expect Chumu to react. His original plan was to beat Chumu from the top to the ground even if he couldn't kill him. Never thought about it. You were right, that is, the sky of this earth cannot accommodate two people. Chumu caught Savitar who was about to fall. His tone was cold. He raised his other hand and made it into a fist, aimed it at Savitar's head and punched him suddenly. The terrifying force even tore the air apart with a rumbling sound. Bang! Chumu's fist collided with the alloy of Savitar's armor, and terrifying airwaves rumbled in the air, even clearing away the rain in a large area for a moment. Boom! Savitar was hit to the ground uncontrollably. The moment he came into contact with the ground, a huge crater with a radius of more than 10 meters was directly made in the concrete ground. It looked like a meteorite hit the earth, the ground shook, and all the scientists and science enthusiasts in the square ran away in fear. Homelander kills people. Damn it! Where did Dr. Barry Allen go? What on earth is that metal monster that suddenly appeared? The situation in the square was chaotic. A group of people didn't even realize that Savitar, the metal monster, was the missing Dr. Barry Allen. The disfigured version of Barry Allen put on the armor so quickly that no ordinary person except Chumu could react. Noisy. Chumu didn't care whether these people regarded him as a butcher who was going on a killing spree. He just felt a little noisy when he heard the cries of these people. He used Raven's teleportation ability and sent all citizens to Boston's most famous lake, Walden Pond, to bathe on a large scale. In this wintertime, it is definitely beneficial to people's health, and it can also cool down the hot-headed people who call for small homes. For a moment, Chumu only felt that she was really considerate. Okay, there are only two of us left. Chumu was still suspended in the dark night amid the rain. He looked at the large pit where the dust and mist rolled. Savitar inside had already woken up from a brief coma. Have to say, the alloy used in Savitar's armor is definitely not a simple thing. It actually didn't have any shapeshifting under Chumu's fist bombardment. The reason why Savitar fell into a brief coma was probably because the shock absorption effect of the armor was not good, and he suffered some minor concussions. Is this the strength of the god on earth? Savitar slowly stood up and looked up at Chumu, who was dressed in black robes in the rain. His heart is extremely unstable now, and he is overwhelmed with fear. Savitar knew very well that if he had not been protected by the armor just now, he would have been very cold. Other side. It is a terrifying existence that can keep up with speedsters just by relying on its physical reactions. Looking at Chumu in the sky, Savita also felt extremely suffocating psychological pressure. As far as I know, he also died, and more than once. Savitar was trying to eliminate the fear of Chumu in his heart. He regarded Chumu as Superman Clark's counterpart in the parallel world. Now, what was rushing through his mind was the historical fact that Superman had died many times in his universe. You are not truly invincible. Savitar roared, and suddenly, blue arcs of electricity began to appear all over his body, and the dazzling brilliance illuminated the entire land. Don't wear this armor. His speed force is yellow, roughly the same color as reverse lightning, and after being strengthened by Savitar's armor, his speed force will turn into blue, which represents extreme speed. I am the strongest. Speed represents truth. Savitar began to move crazily on the ground, constantly accumulating his initial movement speed. Immediately afterwards, probably feeling that the accumulation was almost done, this guy tried to jump up again, and launched a second challenge to Chumu with extremely terrifying speed. It's really fast. The surrounding air was repulsed, causing turbulent ripples. Savitar was only a few dozen meters away from Chumu in the sky. In an instant, blue lightning all over his body gathered on his fist at this moment. To you. I am your invincible. The divine light in Chumu's eyes kept surging, and he directly inspired his own divine fire ray. Next moment. The surging divine fire rays illuminated the night sky, bombarded Savitar's body, and completely covered Savitar's tall armor. This time, even though Savitar was on guard, he still couldn't dodge. The main reason was that after jumping up, he had no way to use force and run. He could only watch with his own eyes as the rays shot out from Chu Emu's eyes, occupying his entire field of vision, and various warning prompts of being overwhelmed came from the armor. How to say? In fact, the speed of light and fire is not slow either. Boom. Savitar was once again bombarded into the previous pit, and another cloud of dust was raised, which once again expanded the width and depth of the pit. The divine fire rays were constantly surging in the deep pit, burning fiercely like a volcanic eruption, and Savitar's armor was burned into a red color. The divine fire in Chu Emu's eyes, just the temperature. This is enough to melt the seismic gold. But Savitar's armor is still holding on. Although it is overwhelmed, there is no sign of melting in a short period of time. This thing, in addition to using the resonance principle to destroy, it is indeed more difficult to destroy. Conservative estimate. They are all technologies from the 26th century or after the main 10th century. Look at the Savitar armor being so firm under the divine fire rays. Chu Mu immediately changed his mind about directly roasting Savitar into jerky. Maybe I should give you a chance. Chu Mu slowly descended from the sky, put away the surging divine fire in his eyes, and looked at Savitar, who was struggling to get up with an indifferent expression. You're humiliating me. Savitar roared and turned into blue lightning again, rushing towards Chu Mu, who had fallen to the ground. He felt that this might be his chance. Too slow. Chu Mu easily dodged the impact of Savitar. Damn guy. Savitar didn't hit once, nor did he stop. The speed force in his body constantly exploded, and he rushed towards Chu Mu faster and faster every time. Chu Mu also moved around extremely quickly on the ground, constantly leaving afterimages, and easily dodged Savitar's attacks again and again. It shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't have such speed. Even if you were Superman. But I am the fastest person in the world. Unwilling to accept the reality, Savitar roared and attacked Chu Mu continuously. Each time, he burst out with faster speed. All of a sudden, he set off violent air currents on the ground, and the entire cutting-edge laboratory became dilapidated, as if it had encountered an extremely terrifying typhoon. All around Chu Mu, there were blue arcs of lightning flashing everywhere, and as far as the eye could see, the blue lightning seemed to be woven into a large net that surrounded Chu Mu. Even under the dark night, it was illuminated. Every second, Savitar launched hundreds of increasingly fierce attacks on Chu Mu. It's just a shame. Faced with this level of achievement, Chu Mu still managed to cope with it with ease, and the calm expression on his face did not change at all. The range of his movements was not large each time, but he was always able to dodge Savitar's attacks. Savitar didn't even touch the corner of his clothes. No way. What makes Chu Mu not slow and responsive? The most important thing is that Savitar's simple brain has no shielding measures at all. Mind reader. Facing such a reckless enemy, it is easy to manipulate the opponent into the palm of your hand. All of Savitar's actions and plans were clearly spied on by Chu Mu. If you are only at this level, I just want to say that there is probably 180,000 light-years between you and becoming a god. Chu Emu's words were extremely plain. He was simply stating a perfectly normal fact. But Savitar felt that Chu Mu was provoking. Hateful. Savitar's speed increased again under rage. Under the dark night, blue arcs were everywhere, and the surrounding air began to become violent because of his speed. A tornado slowly formed, uprooting the building of the cutting-edge laboratory. Savitar once again attempted to attack Chu Mu with a terrifying explosion of speed. I don't believe you can still hide away now. The speed that Savitar is now bursting out would have been able to travel through time countless times before. He roared and rushed towards Chu Mu. However, before he arrived, he saw Chu Emu's eyes locked on him. Can you react to this? What a joke. What kind of monster is this? Savitar collapsed a little. His heart suddenly sank. The next moment, he found that Chu Mu actually rushed towards him. Your speed is too slow. Maybe I should help you. Chu Mu turned sideways to avoid Savitar's attack, then raised his hand and slapped it on Savitar's shoulder. He threw Savitar like a football. Savitar's initial speed was already fast, and if Chu Mu took advantage of the situation and threw it again, his speed would naturally be pushed to a new level. However, Savitar was not happy. He was constantly rolling in the air, like a bolt of lightning, quickly passing through countless scenes in the city. Before Savitar landed, Chu Mu appeared in midair again, as if dragging some cargo, and once again threw it in the direction where he expected inertia to occur. City buildings. The cold lake and the crowd calling for help. He almost hit the roaring train. Savitar discovered that every time after he was thrown out, Chu Mu would always appear out of thin air where he was about to land. He had no way to stabilize his body, and was thrown to the next place by Chu Mu. Bangtong, a place in an uninhabited primeval forest with lush vegetation. Savitar knocked down dozens of big trees and finally fell to the ground, creating a large hole in the primeval forest. Is this speed exciting enough? Chu Mu had already appeared in the big hole made by Savitar before Savitar was about to get up. Raven dissipates. He stepped on Savitar's armor. It seemed like he just stepped on it lightly, but Savitar felt like a mountain was pressing down on him. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't get up from the ground. Damn Superman. How dare you? How dare you treat me like this? Savitar roared, and his already weak self-esteem was severely trampled. Huh. Why don't I dare? Chu Mu raised his foot, and when he dropped it again, he had already stepped on Savitar's head. This was definitely a more serious humiliation than before. I want you to die. I want you to die with you. Savitar roared crazily, and the blue luster on his body began to turn red. Chu Mu reads minds. I discovered that Savitar was in the armor just now, roaring and injecting some kind of drug into his body. That drug seemed to be able to stimulate the speed of the speedster. Simple description. It means that a disabled person can run faster than Bolt. After a weak speedster uses it, he can directly become the fastest speedster. Definitely. There is a price too. The price is that it is easy to wipe yourself out. This is a drug called V9 that appeared in the Flash TV series. With vitality. In exchange for speed. Savitar was obviously really driven into a hurry by Chu Mu. He was so afraid of death that he desperately used life-extending drugs. I want you to die. The surface of Savitar's body shone a deep blue. A speed that Chu Mu felt must be unstoppable began to bloom in him, and Savitar's whole body began to move at a speed that Chu Mu could hardly detect with the naked eye. It seems like it was a mess. That's weird. Chu Mu has been spying on Savitar's thinking. How could he not know what Savitar wanted to do just now? He didn't stop it just because he wanted to see the effect of VP. It seems now. The effect of the V9 drug is indeed quite powerful. Once Savitar was injected, Chu Mu felt that he could no longer keep up with Savitar's speed. This was the life of Savitar who could rival level Godfather in a mortal body. Definitely. The most powerful thing is the Speed Force. That's it for now. Chu Mu also saw the many tricks used by Speed Force users. There was no way he could let Savitar fight back or escape. Then, the divinity in the eyes turned into gloomy black, and a group of giants of Jotunheim in the realm of the dead were once again summoned to the world of the living by the forbidden animal husbandry. As the undead lord, all beings killed by Chu Mu will become Chu Mu's eternal slaves. If Chu Mu wants to, he can bring those decedents back to the living world to fight for him. Even though these giants of Jotunheim hated Chu Mu until they gritted their teeth, now, Chu Mu's order is an oracle that they have to obey. Their souls will not allow them to say no. Wow. Countless ice rays were released by the giants of Jotunheim, from all directions, directly freezing Savitar, who was just about to stand up, into an ice sculpture. This is what speedsters fear most. Extreme cold is their natural nemesis. The so-called god of speed is naturally no exception. Or, I'll add a little bit of the cold death of the decedent country to it. As he said that, Chu Mu put his palm on the ice sculpture to add more chill to the ice sculpture. The disfigured version of Barry Allen was frozen inside. At the moment, in addition to shivering from the cold, he was also on the verge of a complete mental breakdown. How could it be? Like this. The disfigured version of Barry Allen screamed in despair in his heart. He couldn't believe that he had failed so absurdly. What on earth are those transparent creatures that suddenly appear? The speed gained by one's own Krypton life. Why was my account banned before I even started showing off? As everyone knows, the enemies that speedsters fear the most are those who can freeze the temperature. In the face of absolute low temperatures, the running speed of everything will approach zero indefinitely as the temperature decreases. The same goes for the Speed Force. Even if the speedsters can run very fast with the power of speed, the extremely cold temperatures will cause their speed to continue to weaken at low temperatures. Such as Savitar today. He wanted to activate the Speed Force within himself. However, the terrifying ice rays released by the ice giants are definitely more terrifying than most ice super abilities in the DC universe. Savitar was frozen by the extreme cold in just an instant, and could not rely on the high-speed vibration of his body to relieve the extreme impact of the ice ray. No way. Who knows that the ice giants whose souls were imprisoned by Chu Mu are all the best among the ice giant race, and among them there is also a quasi-level godfather, the ice giant king. Even if he takes medicine and kills himself, Savitar cannot let himself turn into a free lightning in the face of his natural ability to restrain himself. Not to mention that Chu Mu also attached a layer of extreme cold from the realm of the dead to this ice, causing the arc of the speed force that had just circulated on Savitar's body to be directly frozen into a solid state. It stopped on the surface of Savitar's body. The heavy rain was already falling constantly. Chu Mu stood in the rain curtain and looked at the ice sculpture in front of him. He felt that the disfigured version of Barry Allen in Savitar's armor was gradually losing his life characteristics under the terrifying extreme cold. The speedsters. The body is not equipped to withstand severe cold temperatures. Pap. Chu Mu snapped his fingers. The surrounding giants of Jotunheim with transparent souls were all taken back by him to the realm of the dead, to continue to suffer. When Chu Mu does not need to summon these souls, all the souls killed by him will constantly sink in the nation of the dead, providing him with a steady stream of death power. But now, it seems that another soul is about to be added to the near of the dead. Only. The Speed Force will not choose dead souls, and without the Speed Force, you are not qualified to serve me in my kingdom. The reason why Chu Mu did not die by Savitar was because he looked down on the ordinary and extremely powerless soul of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. It is different from the essentially powerful beings like giants of Jotunheim. Die. It will make the souls of the speedsters lose the favor of the Speed Force, causing the speedsters to return to become mediocre souls. The Speed Force and the speedster originally belonged to two completely different things. Only when the two things are combined can they be considered extraordinary. This is also the reason why in the DC universe, after the Flash exchanged souls with others, he couldn't use the Speed Force. The power of speedsters comes from the favor of the Speed Force. In a sense, speedsters are even inferior to those with genetically mutated super abilities. The disfigured version of Barry Allen was in the Savitar armor, and his thinking was on the verge of falling into darkness. He tried his best to support his reason and not want to die. Then. His consciousness and vision were still blurred, and in his vision that gradually lost its brightness, he only saw Chu Mu in black robe walking in front of him. Wow! Hubei Chu Mu smashed the frozen ice blocks, and Savitar's armor was lifted into the air directly from a burst of falling ice. Although there is no ice blockade around, the extreme low temperature, which is bone-chilling, is still affecting the people in Savitar's armor. I have an idea. One of Chu Mu's hands directly clasped the neck of Savitar's armor. The majestic force was exerted, and the muscles on his arms constantly erupted in terrifying undulations. It's really a bit tough. Chu Mu discovered that there were no welding points on the surface of Savitar's armor, so that he could not violently remove the armor even though he was powerful enough to easily crush the small planet. The future technology from the DC universe is indeed full of black technology. What a qualified turtle shell. Chu Mu failed to remove Savitar's armor successfully, but the disfigured version of Barry Allen in the armor did not feel the slightest bit happy about it. His eyelids could no longer hold up, and his vision and thinking were even blurry, so that he could not understand what Chu Mu wanted to do. Even if he doesn't do anything, he will be swallowed by death. The disfigured version of Barry Allen feels desolate in his heart. He can't imagine why Chu Mu can be so powerful, and can also summon the ultimate ice those transparent creatures. Superman shouldn't have such means, could it be? The Superman in this universe also has the ability to absorb other people's abilities. The reason why there are not many familiar characters in this universe may be because this blackened version of Superman kills and absorbs people who have pretty good abilities. The disfigured version of Barry Allen had a suspicion in his mind. His current state. It was hard for him to even feel horrified anymore. The disfigured version of Barry Allen just felt Chu Mu throw him to the ground. No hard alloy can resist a force. Countless dead energy that only existed in the invisible horizon surged out of Chu Mu's body. They roared and adhered to the surface of Savitar's armor. Soon, Savitar's armor, which was indestructible and could not be shaken even by the forbidden grazing animals, began to decay. Die. Never just for life. Object. There are also moments of decline. Today's Savitar armor is dying, and a large area has been directly corroded into rust by the breath of death. Wow. This time. Chu Mu easily broke through the decayed steel alloy and pulled the disfigured version of Barry Allen out of the Savitar armor. As for the Savitar armor that lost control and became like a pile of mud, Chu Mu was directly transported to his own alien space. The armor material that even he couldn't shake was of great research value, which is why he only controlled the breath of death to corrode a small area. You can also take it back and use it as experimental materials. Although he doesn't know any scientific restoration methods, he can find the top experts in this industry. If that doesn't work, Tony Stark is also an option. How do you feel now? Are you going to replace me and bring about the death of Superman? Chu Mu took away a lot of the coldness in the body of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. The disfigured version of Barry Allen suddenly became much more awake. He found himself being lifted in midair by Chu Mu, and subconsciously wanted to activate the speed force in his body. Electric arcs began to flow on the body surface of the disfigured version of Barry Allen, but he soon discovered that he could not produce high-speed vibrations in his body. How is this going? The disfigured version of Barry Allen noticed something unusual. Although his body was no longer corroded by the cold air, there was some invisible force restraining him. Without the bonuses and amplification of that armor, it looks like you are just an ordinary speedster. Chu Mu used psychokinesis to restrain the disfigured version of Barry Allen. Before this, the impact of his psychokinesis on Savitar is extremely limited. That armor is indeed a good thing, at least it increases the actual movement of the disfigured version of Barry Allen dozens of times. This monster. The disfigured version of Barry Allen seemed to have exhausted all his strength, staring blankly at Chu Mu, who was carrying him in front of him. The terrible pressure on Chu Mu made him feel almost suffocating, especially in those eyes, which seemed to have some kind of black substance flowing inside. Just look straight at it. It gave the disfigured version of Barry Allen the terrifying feeling of facing death, which is a biological instinct coming from the depths of the soul. Now he no longer dares to think about it. Superman in front of me. How many people's abilities have they absorbed? Yes, the disfigured version of Barry Allen has become more and more determined in his belief that this is a universe ruled by the evil Superman. His heart was full of sorrow and despair. He thought he was coming to a paradise. He had never dreamed that he would end up like this. Kill me. The disfigured version of Barry Allen gritted his teeth and growled at Chu Mu. He wanted to retain the last bit of dignity and did not want to suffer Chu Mu's endless humiliation again. Kill you. I can definitely. Then, as you wish. Chu Mu's hand was wrapped in the air of death, and it penetrated directly through the chest of the disfigured version of Barry Allen, and the body muscles of the speedster. His perception is as fragile as tofu. It's just that sometimes, death doesn't mean you are freed. Chu Mu's disfigured version of Barry Allen quickly understood the meaning behind his words. Ah! The disfigured version of Barry Allen let out a painful cry. He did not faint to death, nor did he lose his life directly. Just like Chu Mu said, he did not obtain liberation in the true sense. What's going on? What's going on? The disfigured version of Barry Allen discovered with great horror that his consciousness was as clear as ever. This is definitely not a flashback before death. The disfigured version of Barry Allen can clearly perceive Chu Mu's hand stirring in his chest. Ah! He roared in extreme pain again. The disfigured version of Barry Allen felt his heart being held by Chu Mu, and then Chu Mu directly pinched his heart and pulled it out of his chest. The disfigured version of Barry Allen suffered severe pain, feeling like his whole body was shaking crazily, but even such pain could not suppress the fear in his heart. That's my heart. The disfigured version of Barry Allen saw Chu Mu's blood-covered hand holding a heart that was still beating. The blood on it was still sliding down, flowing to the ground along the texture of Chu Mu's palm. What did you do to me? The disfigured version of Barry Allen lowered his head in horror. He saw his empty chest, and he let out a scream filled with fear. Devil. Demon. What the hell are you? My heart. My heart. What happened in front of him was obviously beyond the cognition of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. One person. No more heart. He should have just died. But now in addition to not being able to feel the beating of his own heartbeat, his consciousness was far clearer than ever before, which also made the pain he felt clearer. Subverting the development of cognition. There is also heartbreaking pain. Okay, this is indeed heartbreaking pain. The disfigured version of Barry Allen's spirit has been extremely broken. As I said just now, I have an idea. Chu Mu ignored the wailing of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. He let go of the hand holding the disfigured version of Barry Allen. The wailing, disfigured version of Barry Allen is still suspended in midair, controlled by his psychokinesis. I don't want you to lose your Speed Force soul, so I have to put in extra effort for you. There was endless power of death surging in Chu Mu's eyes. He exerted the supreme power of law, creating extremely mysterious shackles and law fluctuations on the heart of the disfigured version of Barry Allen. The authority from the Undead Lord was revealed at this moment, and the disfigured version of Barry Allen immediately felt a sharp sting at the soul level. Kill me. Please. Kill me. The disfigured version of Barry Allen began to plead. He still didn't know what Chu Mu was doing, but now he just wanted to end this horrific encounter. You are already dead. Chu Mu took the heart that he had transformed, walked up to the disfigured version of Barry Allen, and whispered softly to the disfigured version of Barry Allen. It's just that here, death has many meanings. It will not bring you eternal peace. On the contrary, death is just the beginning of your loyalty to me. The heart in Chu Mu's hand was beating constantly, but large amounts of blood mist were squeezed out of the heart with each beating. The strong smell of blood permeated the surroundings. Soon, the heart became pitch black and withered like beef jerky, but its rhythmic and regular beating still continued. Ever heard of black lightning? Chu Mu asked seemingly casually. The disfigured version of Barry Allen felt endless fear again. As a speedster, he definitely knows what black lightning is. Could it be that? The disfigured version of Barry Allen saw the withered and flat heart in Chu Mu's hand, and a bad thought arose in his mind. Impossible. How can it be? The evil version of Superman in front of him couldn't possibly do that kind of thing. The disfigured version of Barry Allen only felt endless fear filling his heartless heart. Reason was telling him that Chu Mu couldn't do that. But his previous assumptions about Chu Mu made him very unsure whether Chu Mu really had that kind of ability. Along with. As Chu Mu approached, the disfigured version of Barry Allen felt the breath of his heart. No, he roared heartbreakingly. Want to struggle hard. It was as if his own heart was something extremely terrifying. Spare me. Don't do that to me. The disfigured version of Barry Allen begged Chu Mu for mercy in fear, but his voice failed to stop Chu Mu from returning his withered heart to his chest. The withered heart connected to the blood vessels of the disfigured version of Barry Allen's body, and restarted to provide the disfigured version of Barry Allen with the pumping function to maintain blood circulation throughout the body. It's just that. The blood, purified by it, is no longer as bright red as before, and it also carries a strange power that constantly penetrates and transforms the disfigured version of Barry Allen's body. Ah! The disfigured version of Barry Allen roared in pain again. Chu Mu released the restraints of psychokinesis, but the disfigured version of Barry Allen did not fall back to the ground. No. No. This shouldn't be my fate. No. A burst of blood mist filled the air from the disfigured version of Barry Allen. Under the influence of the special heart in his body, his whole body was quickly assimilated, and the water in his body evaporated almost instantly. The disfigured version of Barry Allen raised his arms in pain, and arcs representing the speed force began to shine on the surface of his withering body. The arc is getting denser and denser. Disfigured version of Barry Allen's already disfigured face became more and more hideous, and in the blink of an eye, he looked like a mummy with teeth exposed and bones exposed. The breath of living people quickly disappeared from his body, replaced by the unique rotten breath of undead. Yes, Chu Mu used his authority as the undead lord to create it. A living dead spirit. The body still exists. So the speed force will not abandon the disfigured version of Barry Allen. From today on, you are my black lightning. Chu Mu looked at the undead speedster in front of him who had been transformed and had lost human consciousness. He was very satisfied with the black arc on the disfigured version of Barry Allen, and those. Like the soul of giants of Jotunheim, the disfigured version of Barry Allen transformed into black lightning will also be enslaved and driven by Chu Mu for eternity. It will become the extremely fast death god force that carries out Chu Mu's will. Now, as the disfigured version of Barry Allen was transformed into black lightning by Chu Mu, he should no longer be called the original disfigured version of Barry Allen. He was transformed by Chu Mu. In fact, it belongs to the disfigured version of Barry Allen's soul and decayed body, which was recombined into a monster death god without the ability to think on his own. Calling it the speedy death god is not only an adjective for his speed, but also because he was indeed endowed with some divinity by Chu Mu using the authority of the dead lord. The divine quality that can bring death to other life forms. The inspiration for creating this undead speedster came from the original black lightning in the universe. There has been a terrible legend circulating among the speedsters. Every speedster is unique, but their death has long been doomed. The black speedster is hidden in the speed force. All lives will be harvested. No speedster can escape its pursuit. The black figure chasing the speedster is black lightning. No matter how fast you run, you can't escape death. The death in this sentence is the most mysterious speedster, Black Lightning, who appears in the Flash comics. Black Lightning is the death of the DC universe who wants to chase as a slave specially created by the speedster. Since some speedsters are so fast that they can even leave death behind, death has specially created hunters to hunt down speedsters. Black Lightning is the most feared enemy of all speedsters. It is also the fate that all speedsters will eventually go to. Although the speed force is an ability, sometimes it can turn into a terrible curse. Black Lightning possesses super speed, which allows him to run as fast as a speedster and at least 4 times the speed of light. Therefore, it can be considered one of the fastest beings in the DC universe. It can even freeze time outside of the speed force and interrupt the speedrunner's connection to the speed force. I will give it the extreme cold of the Decedent Kingdom, and it will be almost the same as the genuine Black Lightning. Chu Mu walked up to Black Lightning, who was standing there motionless. He raised his hand, and the sun point came from the Decedent Kingdom. the cold air was given to Black Lightning's body by him. All of a sudden, Black Lightning, which was originally ghostly, looked even more eerie and terrifying, with an extremely cold temperature all over its body that could freeze the speed force in other speedsters. As the undead monarch, it makes sense for me to own a Black Lightning. Chu Mu looked at his masterpiece, admiring it for a long time and felt very satisfied. In the past, there was an ice giant who added the first kind of soul to his decedent kingdom. And now there is a living undead, refined by a speedster, which brings a different feeling to the decedent kingdom. Chu Mu seems to I saw the future scene of species diversity becoming more and more prosperous in the decedent country. How to say? Collect enemy souls, if you get used to it. It seems to be similar to the feeling of collecting Pokemon. You need to defeat the opponent first, and then capture the target. When needed later, you can throw it out to fight. That's a wonderful metaphor for me. Chu Mu then began to test the strength of Black Lightning. The disfigured version of Barry Allen is also Barry Allen after all, the fastest one among the speedsters, and is now refined by Chu Mu after becoming Black Lightning. The favor he received from the Speed Force did not diminish much. In fact, abandoning flesh and blood, Black Lightning can burst out at far more terrifying speeds than the disfigured version of Barry Allen. Although it is not as fast as Savitar's extreme speed, Black Lightning's current speed is far more than 7 or 8 times faster than Quicksilver after gaining the Speed Force. Coupled with the divine power given by Chu Mu, Black Lightning can draw nutrients from the enemy's power to become stronger after hunting the enemy. Black Lightning's potential is also higher than that of Giants of Jotunheim, and that Giants the King of Jotunheim is much stronger. Perhaps, in the future, it can hunt level Godfather's life for me and hunt the 5 gods of the universe. Chu Mu enjoyed the future for a while before raising his hand and snapping his fingers. A dimensional gap leading to the netherworld of the dead was opened by him in the form of a door. Next moment, as Chu Mu gave orders to Black Lightning, brush, the Black Lightning directly turned into a black stream of light, and ran into Chu Mu's Kingdom of the Dead, along the door of the Kingdom of the Dead, opened by Chu Mu. When Chu Mu doesn't need him, he will naturally stay in the netherworld of the dead, but because he accepted Chu Mu's transformation, he can't provide anything when he stays in the dead of the dead. What pain squeezes out the strength? There are pros and cons. The transformed Black Lightning has a very high growth limit, and he definitely cannot be treated as a generator, like Giants of Jotunheim. From now on, the purpose and meaning of Black Lightning's existence. It is to bring death, consolation, to Chu Mu's enemies. No matter where that person hides, even if he hides in the cracks of time, he will chase the enemy until the enemy is dragged into the abyss of death by him. After Black Lightning was transformed by Chu Mu, not only did he still possess the Speed Force, his hands also had the ability to absorb the enemy's vitality crazily. If an ordinary person is touched by Black Lightning, his life will come to an end in the blink of an eye, losing all his vitality and turning into a withered skeleton. Even extraordinary beings cannot escape the fate of having their lives sucked out of them. No matter how powerful they are and their vitality is low, they will die at the same speed as ordinary people. This is the power of rules. Yahung is part of the divinity Chu Mu bestows on Black Lightning. A gold level status can make Chu Mu a god, and a platinum level status can naturally make Chu Mu a god of death. One of the benefits that the identity of Undead Lord brings to Chu Mu is that his existence is almost equivalent to death originally. This also means that the Black Lightning created by Chu Mu now will not be worse than the Black Lightning created by the Death Rule of the DC Universe in the DC Universe. Both are products of the same concept. I came here at the right time. Not only did I organize Savitar's ridiculous plan, but I also slightly enhanced my own strength. Chu Mu is in a very good mood. Not only does he have a Black Lightning as a thug, but the Savitar armor can definitely give him a big surprise. Its material comes from at least 25 centuries after the DC Universe, and is probably a product of the interstellar era, and there will definitely not be too much of that kind of material in the future time and space of the DC Universe. After all, even Chu Mukai's father's power couldn't damage Savitar's armor. Is the person in the future of the DC Universe a level godfather? Definitely impossible. The only explanation is that the disfigured version of Barry Allen obtained some kind of special rare metal in the future of the DC Universe. Maybe it came from the deep starry sky in the DC Universe. Anyway. Now that the Savitar armor has fallen into Chu Mu's hands, he feels that even if he cannot reproduce the alloy of the armor, it would be good to understand the technology contained in it. Maybe we can also study how to use the Speed Force and create speedsters one after another in batches. Haha, I really have a lot on my mind. I don't need to put a tortoise shell on me. I can only say that Sky and the others lack similar life-saving means. Chu Mu thought in her heart. He had just planned to use Raven to teleport back to New York. However, Kacha kacha kacha, in the primeval forest where the rain was pouring, there was suddenly one sound after another, the kind of crisp and clear movement that came one after another. From far to near, the sound stood out in the stormy night. Wait until the sound is completely close. Chu Mu was a little surprised to find that the surrounding space had been flipped over like a mirror, and the entire forest seemed to have stopped swaying in the wind and rain. It's not just that the wind has died down. Even the sounds of insects in the virgin forest disappeared without a trace, and the continuous rainstorm no longer made a crash sound. The rain that had been falling densely before suddenly stopped in midair at the moment. Raindrops are suspended one after another. It's like time stands still. Something strange. Chu Mu raised his hand and wiped it in the air, but he was able to wipe the water stains on his hand. He shook his hand and threw the water stains on his hand to the ground. The place where he wiped in the air before has lost a small piece of water droplets, which looks particularly conspicuous among the densely suspended raindrops. It looks like a blackboard with paintings on it. Suddenly hit by the blackboard, I gave it a hard wipe. Mirror space. Chu Mu probably understood what was going on, so his expression was just one of surprise but no doubt. Isn't the ability that flipped like a mirror space? Kamar Taj's signature spell. A magic that can replace the real space. It can isolate a mirror space that will not affect the real world. In the isolated space, whether a nuclear bomb explodes outside or inside the isolated mirror space, it will not affect the space on the other layer. For the mirror spell, it is essentially a space rule. It creates a small world, but this small world copies certain scenes in the real world. Sorcerer Supreme. Chu Mu looked in a certain direction. In the darkness, a thin figure wearing a yellow robe was walking slowly through the stopped rain. In the night, Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One's face showed no expression at all, and was extremely cold. Where her eyes should have been, now they looked like an endless abyss of darkness. Hollow. Godless. It's chilling. Something is wrong. Chu Mu felt something strange in Ancient One. At the moment, the Ancient One, who was getting closer and closer, had powerful magic waves rippling around his body, but it did not make Chu Mu feel the surging vitality that level Godfather's life should have. Yes. Chu Mu, as the Undead Lord, has the power of life and death, but he is not able to feel the life fluctuations of the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One. This is definitely an extremely unreasonable situation. Everyone is just a level Godfather. There is no reason why Sorcerer Supreme can hide life fluctuations so well. Dead silence, darkness. Chu Mu looked at the Sorcerer Supreme coming out of the forest. He could only use these two words to describe the Ancient One in his perception. There is no feeling that the living should have, and there is no decay that decedent has. It's like the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One's entire being is wrapped in darkness. Are you okay, magician? At the beginning of time travel, Chu Mu was most worried about meeting the Ancient One, but now, he is no longer as afraid of the Sorcerer Supreme as before. Under the equal level of life, Chu Mu doesn't think he can't beat Ancient One. Therefore, even when the Ancient One suddenly came to visit, Chu Mu's mentality remained calm and calm. He is just confused about Ancient One's current state. Better than ever, under the dark night. Ancient One replied hoarsely. She silently took off the hood covering her head, revealing her extremely pale face. It almost shocked Chu Mu. Ancient One's eyes had no eyeballs, leaving only two hollow and deep eye sockets. There is some kind of magical energy that is constantly shining in it, and it is also full of dark atmosphere. The dark red mark on Ancient One's forehead looked very conspicuous at the moment. Dark dimension. Chu Mu definitely knows where the mark on Ancient One's forehead comes from. That is a sign of absorbing and using the power of the dark dimension. In the origin of Doctor Strange's birth, Dormammu's believers all have this sign. Definitely. The Ancient One is definitely not a believer of Dormammu, he just uses the power of the dark dimension, which is completely different from those fanatical believers who crazily worship Dormammu. One is simply borrowing power, and the other wants to dedicate everything to Dormammu. The genius magician Caecilius is a typical blind worshipper of Dormammu. It can only be said that Caecilius has no idea about his master's worth. Don't look at how a group of magicians who believe in darkness describe Dormammu in a very high-level way. What kind of dimensional master is he and what kind of dark Mephisto is he? However, actually, that's not the case at all. Dormammu is not the master of the dark dimension in the true sense. He just absorbed a massive amount of dark energy in that dimension and became the most powerful creature in that dimension. Dormammu is also essentially a human magician. Even the ability is not half as high as Ancient One. Regardless of what Ancient One said about Doctor Strange being the best, when it comes to magic ability, Ancient One is not inferior to Doctor Strange. In fact, every Sorcerer Supreme cannot be mediocre. The Ancient One can take a mortal body and become a father-level being, and her magical ability is considered to be the absolute best in the universe. The Ancient One was killed by Caecilius before Doctor Strange became the Sorcerer Supreme because the Ancient One wanted to take the opportunity to retire. Otherwise, with the power of a few traitors, how is it possible to threaten the life of a level godfather? Being able to recognize the marks of the dark dimension, it seems you know a lot. Ancient One looked at Chu Mu with his eyes filled with magical energy. I don't know if Ancient One, with only the eye sockets left, can see the image. Chu Mu actually didn't know much about magic. His identity as the Undead Lord gave him legal authority. A little bit easier to understand. That is, the magic in the Marvel Universe borrows power from the various Lords of Law, and Chu Mu is the kind of existence that can lend power to others and let others perform magic. It's still raining at night. Sorcerer Supreme, you came to me in the rain just to see my knowledge level, right? Chu Mu stared at the Ancient One, always on guard. He felt an extremely active magic wave from the Ancient One. It seemed as if the other party could take action at any time. Definitely not. Ancient One's voice was extremely hoarse. The magical energy around her was becoming more active. I'm just here to verify something. I'll take you with me, by the way. Between Ancient One's lowered hands, a magic circle was constantly being constructed. Take me away. The divine power in Chu Mu's body is also ready to go. He doesn't know what the attitude of Ancient One is, but now he is certain of one thing. Before we talk about this issue, let's solve my doubts first. Magician, can you tell me where your soul has gone? Yes. By probing. Chu Mu determined a very shocking fact, that is, the magician standing in front of him did not have the soul that a living person should have. This is also the reason why he cannot perceive the life fluctuations of the Ancient One. After all, what appears in front of him is just a body that can move, think, and speak. Is this magic? Chu Mu sighed a little in his heart. The Ancient One didn't know what kind of Mephisto's power it used to achieve this effect. Oh. Did you discover this? Ancient One's smile was a little weird, and the magic circle in her hand became more intense and stable. You will know. After I take you away. As the magic circle gathered, strong winds also blew in the forbidden mirror space around it. The trees swayed. The aura on Ancient One is extremely terrifying. Full of darkness. Is this a sign of surrender to Dormammu? Not like that. Dormammu only became a being in the level single universe by relying on the dark dimension. A leader like Ancient One who has become the Father of Heaven on his own will definitely look down on Dormammu's so-called power. Besides, Ancient One's backstage is eternal. One of the 5 gods of the Marvel Universe. The Ancient One is not a fool after all. How could he not follow the Wu Chang who gave up level universe and go with a young president in a remote place? What if I don't want to go with you? Chu Mu's eyes also bloomed with divine light, and her body surface burned with brilliance like the sun. Under the cover of night, extraordinarily shining. With a terrifying sense of oppression. In Chu Mu's eyes, at the moment, surging aura of death was already flowing out. Fight with strong men of the same level, and it's still in a mirror space that doesn't affect the real world. Chu Mu definitely needs to be on full fire, the strength of the Ancient One. But his strength is enough to make the Nordic god King Odin fearful and no longer dare to treat the earth as his back garden. He is also considered the top among level godfather. You have only 2 choices, either leave with me, or I leave with your body and soul. Ancient One's voice was extremely determined. In her empty eyes, the dark energy is rolling, and the brilliance of magic is blooming. As the Sorcerer Supreme finished speaking, suddenly, in addition to the light in the Ancient One's hand, the entire land in the mirror space also lit up with an unusually conspicuous and eye-catching magic array. The ancient atmosphere is circulating. Terrifying energy is brewing inside. I think there is a third option, for example. Let your body stay here forever. The death energy in Chu Mu's body surged out crazily, hovering in the mirror space as if it were boundless. Covering the sky and blocking out the sun in the invisible field of vision of ordinary people, the air of death is constantly rolling and surging, interweaving like a violent storm, as if the whole world has been dyed with a layer of black. Everything is included in the haze of death, a battle at level Godfather, ready to go. The death aura dominated by Chu Mu's consciousness attempts to corrupt the Ancient One. This is a body that has lost its soul. Although there is no vitality fluctuation, if the air of death can be successfully eroded, within a few moments, it will be like killing an ordinary person, draining all the vitality in the Ancient One's body. Take it away. Even the life of level Godfather will eventually turn into dust. Chu Mu mobilized the energy of death and rushed towards the Ancient One crazily. However, Homelander, your power is so dark, so evil. Ancient One whispered, and the magic circle in his hand suddenly activated. Center her. Thousands of golden vines suddenly surged out from the magic circle, forming wings like thousands of long snakes behind her. Swish swish, countless magic vines were waving with fangs and claws, as if they could crush everything in the world, with extremely terrifying power and movement. The auras of death that attempted to attack the Ancient One were all dispersed by the golden magic vines, and could not be reunited for a long time. It was like thousands of long snakes flying, attached to the magic vines behind Ancient One, forming a protective zone in the area centered on Ancient One. This is the first time Chu Mu has encountered someone who can force back the breath of death. No, judging from the Ancient One's actions in controlling those magic vines. Maybe the Ancient One can still see the breath of death. Although the aura of death only exists in the horizon invisible to ordinary people, the horizon that Ancient One has now without his eyeballs is obviously not the horizon in the eyes of normal people. I don't know what kind of magical energy Ancient One used to construct the magic vision. Your evil power cannot defeat me. The Ancient One's empty eyes looked at Chu Mu, with millions of vines dancing continuously behind her. Within a few kilometers, magic vines covered the sky and the sun, and the Ancient One, who was clustered in the middle, seemed extremely small in comparison. It is impossible to count how many magic vines there are, dancing densely, and their tips are all pointed in the direction where Chu Mu is standing. All the dancing magic vines are like arrows on the string, ready to attack Chu Mu at any time under the orders of the Ancient One. Magician, don't you look at yourself before talking about me. I'm really curious. Why you gave up your soul? Chu Mu did not continue to control the Black Death energy to continue attacking. His figure instantly disappeared from the place, and the next moment he appeared in front of the Ancient One. Although Kamar Taj's magicians can all engage in melee combat, in front of warriors of Chu Mu's level, the so-called melee magicians are definitely just an ugly joke. Swish swish, Ancient One did not answer Chu Mu's question. Countless magic vines behind her all rose up, blocking Chu Mu's attacks from all directions. The tearing air sounds continued one after another, and the magic vines were extremely fast. When Chu Mu arrived in front of the Ancient One, they sealed Chu Mu's front, rear, left, and right sides. There was also a magic vine among them. The Ancient One was wrapped and guarded in it. I can tell. The Ancient One also knows how powerful Chu Mu's melee ability is. These little tricks can't stop me. Golden light bloomed in Chu Mu's eyes, and surging divine fire spurted out from his body. The fire that soared into the sky illuminated the night under the mirror space, forming an extremely terrifying firestorm that spread in all directions. Those vines that can stir up the air of death will be burned into the purest particles in an instant if they are touched by the divine fire released by Chu Mu. The power of magic is also within the scope of Chu Mu's divine fire burning. With the help of the vines where magic is born, there is no way to resist the burning of life. It's just the blink of an eye. The countless magical vines that were surging like they were blocking out the sky before were all wiped out by Chu Mu's divine fire. In the air, there are countless particles of light slowly dissipating. Chu Mu had already arrived in front of the Ancient One. In addition to the terrifying power, the fists he waved were also attached with a layer of surging divine fire. The magic vines blocking the Ancient One could not stop his fists at all. An oppressive fist. It simply broke through many obstacles. Smashed into the Ancient One. Facing the fist that seemed capable of destroying everything, Ancient One frowned slightly, and a spell she had prepared long ago was activated by her in an instant. Space transfer. Chu Mu's fist fell empty. But his fist style still destroyed forests one by one, creating a large area of barren land on the earth with no end as far as the eye could see. I never fight an unprepared battle, although I can no longer see the future. But I believe there will only be one ending for you. The Ancient One appeared in the sky dozens of kilometers behind Chu Mu. The tone was firm, with an indescribable determination. No, you and I have no grudges in the past, and we have no grudges these days. You just come to your door and want to fight. Isn't this a bit too overbearing? Chu Mu couldn't figure out what was going on with the Sorcerer Supreme in front of him. Not only has the originally gentle temperament disappeared, but even the soul has disappeared for no apparent reason. This is completely different from Chu Mu's memory of the Ancient One. Could it be the abnormality caused by the identity of Almighty I? It doesn't look like it either. I saw the rightness of what I did. The Ancient One stirred up strong magic fluctuations in the sky. As she activated the magic, thousands of Ancient Ones appeared in the sky. Each Ancient One is releasing magic, and one magic array after another lights up in the sky, as if forming a canopy of magic arrays in the sky. In front of each Ancient One, a colorless and transparent giant magic ball began to condense. In the magic ball, filled with a dark energy that can destroy everything. It's just a little overflowing energy that is fluctuating, and even the space becomes mottled and decayed, like countless invisible swords cutting the earth and sky. The environment of the entire mirror space became riddled with holes in an instant. Chu Mu could feel the slight vibrations in the space, and some kind of distorted and uncomfortable energy that was slowly eroding into this space that was independent of reality. A chill gradually seeped in, and the coldness and darkness spread, as if it was dragging everything into the abyss. No matter what power the Ancient One is using now, the dimension that lent her this power, Mephisto, is definitely an abnormal existence full of darkness. Want to correct everything back to the historical trajectory you know? Chu Mu smiled scornfully, the divine fire in his eyes swaying constantly. That's just a woven tragedy. Magician, how much forbidden knowledge can you see outside the universe? Chu Mu's eyes became brighter and brighter. I saw everything. The Ancient One shouted hoarsely, and the voices of countless Ancient Ones continued to echo in the mirror space. Deafening. As the Ancient One released the magic in his hands one after another, countless large and transparent magic balls suddenly flew towards Chu Mu. Every Ancient One created by magic is an individual between illusion and reality, and the magic they release is equally powerful. As thousands of magic light balls flew past, the realm of the mirror space changed again, and the surrounding forest and the earth shattered by Chu Mu were all pushed to both sides, as if to make way for this ball of light to pass. There was also a cloud of sand and dust on the ground. You are so arrogant. Countless surging fires surged out of Chu Mu's eyes, converging into fierce rays. Unprecedented power of divine fire was released by him. If this was not a mirror space, most of the earth might have been destroyed. The brilliant golden divine fire laser seemed to transcend space, suppressing all other colors in the world. The domineering beam shot straight into the sky and destroyed everything encountered along the way. Photosphere. Each transparent magic ball was easily penetrated, and then was decomposed into countless air currents under the power of law that contained the power of devouring gods and demons. Invisible airwaves are rolling and raging, and the spaces on both sides are cracking like mirrors, as if they are overwhelmed and about to break. Magician. Is this what you saw? The divine fire laser in Chu Mu's eyes wiped out all the transparent light balls in the sky, and it still swept away with undiminished power. Chu Mu couldn't tell which one is the real Ancient One. But destroy them all. There is no longer any reality or illusion. The Ancient One figures one after another disintegrated into dust in Chu Mu's divine fire rays. Hey. Faced with Chu Mu's provocative questioning, the Ancient One that keeps disappearing in the sky is chuckling strangely. You think I want to attack you? Ancient One's voice has an indescribable flavor. No, I'm just preparing this magic, preparing for the final chapter I will give you. All the Ancient Ones spoke at the same time. Even though Chu Mu's divine fire rays were constantly destroying her duplications one by one, she had no plans to save or make other responses. As their duplication dissipated, the hands of every Ancient One that did not die lit up with extremely eye-catching and complex patterns of magic circles. I saw. In the sky. A magic circle appeared that seemed to cover the entire planet, intertwining in the sky, with complex runes flowing rapidly within it. Chu Mu watched as the Ancient One's duplication continued to decrease, but the divine fire ray did not stop because of this, and headed directly towards the Ancient One in the last area. It's over. Ancient One whispered softly. The remaining duplications are destroyed. The last real body saw Chu Mu's divine fire rays sweeping in, but she did not dodge. She chose to directly activate the magic circle that she had prepared for a long time. Boom. The magic array in the sky began to move, as if echoing the magic array on the earth, and some ancient and vast power was forcibly activated. Green glow. It seems to be blooming between heaven and earth. Wow. The divine fire ray in Chu Mu's eyes skipped the last Ancient One, and the aftertaste shot straight into the sky, as if it was about to shatter the magic circle in the sky. However, huge amounts of magic circles have been activated. Wow. The mirror space shattered under the terrifying power. In the real world, the primitive forest is still the extremely silent primitive forest. The previous battle in the mirror space did not affect the real environment. Under the dark night, the chirping of countless insects mixed with the roar of the beast. At this time, plop, Ancient One's body, which was hit by the divine fire ray, fell from the sky to the ground and fell into a small mud pit formed by heavy rain. Her hollow, deep eyes lost all color, and the magical energy flowing in them slowly dissipated. Kakaka, it's like glass is cracking. Ancient One's body also had cracks open, and the mana accumulated over thousands of years was constantly dissipating from the cracks. I saw the last moments of life. Ancient One is still whispering. Sorcerer Supreme's body couldn't bear the attack of the divine fire ray released by Chu Mu with all her strength, and dense cracks covered every inch of her skin. After the magic power is gone, the powerful level God Father fell silently. At the same time, in Kamar Taj, the symbol of Sorcerer Supreme's survival also shattered. In the virgin forest, the former harmony was restored again. However, in this desolate land, except for the Ancient One who died directly due to serious injuries, Chu Emu's figure has never appeared again. Did Chu Mu and Ancient One die together? Number. It's definitely not that. The powerful magic prepared by Ancient One for a long time did not cause any harm to Chu Mu. In fact, it was not a magic with an attack effect. Space magic. Time magic. Chu Mu, who disappeared above the earth, appeared in a hazy passage, and everything around him was twisted in colorful chaos. If you look carefully at a certain area of the passage, you can see one world after another constantly interpreting various stories. This is the gap between worlds in the passage to the past and future. The magic of the Ancient One transported Chu Mu to this area. That's a teleportation spell. The battle with the Ancient One. It seems that Chu Mu won with an overwhelming advantage. However, in fact, this victory is not perfect. The Ancient One still released an ancient and complex magic, bringing Chu Mu to this special area of chaos, which is extremely vast and vast. Unlike the end of time where countless Loki gathered in the Marvel Universe, the place where Chu Mu is staying now is the void that truly connects countless universes. This place is between illusion and reality. There is nothing, only entrances to various universes and to different universes. Chu Mu can feel that if he is willing, he can directly enter a certain universe by just diving into a certain chaos. It's not difficult to get out of trouble. The hard part is finding the right universe. You know, in Marvel's multi-level perspective, the number of universes is almost infinite. It can even be said that countless parallel universes are born every moment, and countless parallel universes are constantly dying. Perhaps one more sneeze by an ordinary person will create a completely different parallel universe. In such a situation, it is necessary to find the universe that belongs to oneself. To be honest, Chu Mu thinks that finding a needle in a haystack is probably simpler than this situation. The old guy who has been tricked and has lived for thousands of years really cannot have the slightest contempt for them. Chu Mu even had a feeling that the purpose of the Ancient One's visit was to release this magic on him. It was not because he couldn't beat the impromptu decision he made. What is the purpose of Ancient One? Why did this thankless process of exile?
If Chu Mu cannot be eradicated, aren't we afraid that Chu Mu will find his way back again? Or is it that Chu Mu can't find his way back?
Really? Finding the right choice in countless universes that are many times more numerous than the stars is almost impossible even for Chu Mu. If Ancient One had the intention of exiling Chu Mu, it would indeed be difficult for Chu Mu to really find a way to go home. It's not like she knew that I was a time traveler, and she didn't see through the secret about me at all, but she still found me and made this decision. Chu Mu only felt that there was a layer of fog surrounding the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One that he could not see clearly now. The Ancient One who has no soul at all. The behavior was indeed bizarre to the extent that Chu Mu could not understand it. The Ancient One came to the door and launched an attack on Chu Mu without saying a word. In order to banish Chu Mu, he even sacrificed his life. What is this? Although Chu Mu did not see the Ancient One fall back in the end a corpse in the real world, but as the one who initiated the attack, he could naturally judge how much damage his attack had caused. Although Kamar Taj's magicians all like to play close combat, even Sorcerer Supreme's level Godfather body is only the weakest among the level Godfathers, and may not be as good as the giants who are almost level Godfathers. Of Jotunheim, the Ancient One is powerful in magic and spiritual power. Under the attack of Chu Emu's divine fire ray, Chu Mu was very sure that the Ancient One would definitely die. After all, the Ancient One did not use the time gem at the last moment. Speaking of which, the Ancient One who fought me didn't have the eye of Agamotto hanging around his neck. Chu Emu's eyes flickered slightly. He speculated that the Ancient One might have already appointed a new successor when he came to find him, and the unlucky Doctor Strange might have taken up the post in advance. Otherwise, as Kamar Taj, the Sorcerer Supreme should usually carry the Eye of Agamotto at all times. Guarding the Eye of Agamotto is the duty of every 10 generations of Sorcerer Supreme. Eye of Agamotto. When the Supreme Magician Agamotto was still guarding the Earth, this eyeball began to be famous in all dimensions for its powerful magic. Some people say that Agamotto, the all-seeing one, made it himself, while others say that Agamotto found the Eye of God that had been floating among the stars in the sky for many years. However, in reality, the core of Agamo Eye of Tal is Time Gem. It can give the user the ability of all-seeing, allowing the user to see through many illusions in the world and peer into invisible alien worlds.
Definitely. Because of the Time Gem, the greatest ability of Eye of Agamotto is that it can still observe the past and future, and even allow people to reverse time. It is controlled by the user's thoughts and willpower, and will also establish a supernatural connection with its user.
In the hands of a qualified owner, Eye of Agamotto, also known as Time Gem, can definitely exert the power of a single universe to its limit. In Chu Emu's previous battle with the Ancient One, he had always been wary of the Eye of Agamotto, fearing that he would not be able to match the power of the infinite gems. Even though Chu Mu possesses the uniqueness of time, even if we put aside the attribute of time, Time Gem still contains the power of the limit of a single universe. In some parallel universes, Doctor Strange can even use the Eye of Agamotto to undo the modification of reality caused by the Scarlet Witch's origin magic power. It is enough to see that the power of Time Gem is not just to control time, it also originally contains the most powerful extraordinary energy in the universe. If Ancient One intends to use it to enhance itself, Ancient One will definitely be able to raise itself to the limit of a single universe in a short period of time. When it comes to magic and strength, the Ancient One actually crushes Doctor Strange in almost most universes. How to say? When Chu Mu was fighting before, he was also thinking about various countermeasures. This was one of the reasons why he didn't notice the Ancient One quietly setting up the magic circle. Well, after all, it's strange that Chu doesn't know much about magic. Who could have imagined? From the beginning to the end, Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One seems to have never thought about using Time Gem. He just secretly prepared the magic of exile like an old silver coin? You suffer the consequences of being uneducated. Chu Mu felt the importance of knowledge. As soon as he found a way back, he would go to Kamar Taj and empty out the library there. No. That's to get your own trophies. Magic is indeed secretive and strange sometimes, and there is nothing wrong with knowing more about magic anyway. The most important question now is how should I go back? Chu Mu looked at the chaos around him. He kept seeing various parallel universes in his field of vision, including the universe where Wolverine ruled the world, and the universe where Iron Man became the universe of the God of the universe. There is also the evil Ancient One who rules the entire universe. In each universe, completely different stories are presented. If the environment and place were changed, Chu Mu would probably be able to catch up on dramas, but now he is worried about whether he can find his own universe. That's not it. Not this either. This is even more outrageous. Iron Man's battlesuit swallowed Iron Man's skin, setting off a Cthulhu-style metal revolution in the world. This universe looks a bit like that one. Seems to be similar. Damn it. Why can't I lock the location of the Star Tower? The chaos around Chu Emu's body shines with light and shade constantly. Seeing one paradoxical universe after another made him feel dizzy. Chu Mu is only level Godfather's field of vision and cannot lock an exact location across a universe. He could only vaguely see some situations on the Earth. This also makes it difficult for Chu Mu to distinguish whether some specious universes are correct or not. No way. This is already because Chu Mu originally had very strong eyesight. If he were a one-eyed dragon like Odin, he might not be able to see as much information as him. Level Godfather's life is only very powerful in a single universe. When you reach the multi-universe level, it is not just a little bit powerless. All I can say is that it is still a bit unsatisfactory. Definitely, it does not mean that the life of level Godfather will definitely be lost in the multi-universe. If Chu Mu, like Odin, Zeus and other heavenly father gods, has huge faith, he can also rely on these believers to determine the location of the universe. It's just a shame. Chu Mu has not traveled this route. Even if I don't need it, I should actually spread a little faith. In that case, I can at least have an anchor point to lock on. Hey, I didn't expect to encounter something like this. Chu Mu patted his forehead depressedly. He regretted that he did not establish a religion, otherwise he could use his religion as an anchor. There is a group of loyal believers. The quantity must be sufficient. There would be no such situation as getting lost now. Regardless of whether the beliefs of those believers can bring about an increase in strength, as an anchor point, they all have the function of allowing Forbidden Priest to lock in which universe their beliefs are located. It's useless to regret. Chu Mu sighed heavily. Who would have thought that before, he was having dinner at the house of his suddenly new fiancée, thinking about completing the exclusive task regarding his fiancée's identity, and then within a few hours, he would have a fight with Savitar who had entered the house unexpectedly. Just deal with Savitar. He also faced off against the Ancient One who came to the door for some reason. This Ancient One did not care about martial ethics and directly exchanged his life for the opportunity to banish the forbidden animal. No matter what, I can't stay in this place forever. Chu Mu wants to find the right option among countless universes, which is tantamount to an almost impossible task. After all, he cannot cover countless universes. That searches countless universes. Just rely on luck. It's more or less like a fantasy. If it really doesn't work, I can only enter a universe at will, research a feasible method, and then cross the parallel universe. Chu Mu thought for a moment. and many ways to travel through parallel universes that could be found in the Marvel Universe popped up in his mind. Always staying in this caught world, even though Chu-Mu will not die of hunger or thirst, no one can tell whether time has passed in this world. If Chu-Mu keeps searching in this place, when he returns to the universe where he lives, if he cannot save that universe, it will already be destroyed. In order to reduce this uncertainty as much as possible, Chu-Mu still has to find a universe to drill into first, and then make long-term plans in that universe. It is not difficult to find a way to travel through parallel universes. Including the quantum realm that appeared in Avengers 4, it can actually be regarded as a way to cross between different parallel universes. There are also some cosmic secret treasures and crazy scientists who all have methods to open the door to parallel universes. Definitely. In Chu-Mu's opinion, the safest way is to untie the bell and tie the bell, since the Ancient One in his own universe can use magic to banish him to the boundary between nothingness and reality. Then there should naturally be similar magic in Kamar Taj in other parallel universes. If you go directly to the door to find the banishment magic circle used by the Ancient One, you can return to this area. Just as Chu-Mu was constantly weighing it in his heart. He suddenly realized. In the chaos channel connecting countless universes, the extremely inconspicuous cosmic aura somewhere suddenly became extremely active. Chu-Mu is aware of this signal. It was like something in that universe was sending a special summon signal to him. Chu-Mu was a little surprised. This feeling was constantly getting stronger. He didn't know if it came from the universe where he lived. Is it here? Chu-Mu cast his gaze over. However, but he could only roughly see the specious earth. I can only say that the feeling of calling is constantly increasing and seems to disappear at any time. Whether it is or not, maybe I should go in first. Chu-Mu felt that if the calling breath disappeared, among the many parallel universes, he might not be able to determine which universe the calling was. After all, the world is growing every moment, and if you look in the same direction next time, you will see a completely different universe. That's it. Chu-Mu made a decision immediately, and his body turned into a golden stream of light, directly breaking into the universe that issued the call. After a period of ripples and distortions, Chu-Mu disappeared into the waves, and the entire passage between illusion and reality returned to its original peace once again. After a long time, a pair of terrifying eyes, with an ancient aura that seemed to have existed forever, quietly appeared, glanced at this place of chaos for a long time, and then gradually disappeared. Not here. The process of entering a universe. It's not as simple as walking through an invisible door. You will first see countless bizarre pictures in your field of vision, and you will feel that your body is being squeezed in some way. If the body is not strong enough, it will be directly annihilated into dust. The entry method without any technology or magic blessing is so simple and direct and full of dangers. It's like a validation. Verify whether the entrant is qualified to travel through the universe. The reason why Mephisto is so powerful that it can cross the dimensions of the universe is because direct intrusion will encounter some kind of screening barrier. Chu-Mu can definitely withstand this not too strong squeezing force. When he crossed the cosmic barrier and entered the universe calling him, the distorted and bizarre images in his sight gradually disappeared, and the surrounding space seemed to be dyed with a layer of color. Does anyone want to buy salted fish? Fresh drinking water, a must-have for adventurers. Do you want to find the treasure in the desert? The treasure map handed down from our ancestors is sold at a cheap price. The sound of hawking began to ring in my ears. Chu-Mu looked around intently. He had indeed successfully entered a universe. However, the imaginary wilderness and the bustling traffic in the city did not appear. Is it very backward here? After Chu-Mu saw the surrounding environment, his expression could not help but be slightly startled. He should probably have appeared above the earth. After all, there are vendors selling goods everywhere. Except for their heads wrapped in white cloths and linen clothes, they all speak in English. Definitely. There were also some other languages mixed in, and Chu-Mu recognized the Egyptian language. Chu-Mu is relatively proficient in most languages on the earth. Language learning. It is not difficult for an extraordinary person with a very high level of life. Chu-Mu even spent only half a day learning Latin. Egypt. Chu-Mu listened to the indigenous language of the vendors, combined with the surrounding land full of yellow sand, and the vast stretches of desert in the distance, and roughly judged where he was. The yellow sand everywhere also gave birth to ancient civilizations. The Kingdom of Earth. The reason why a group of Egyptians can speak English is probably because most of the people purchasing supplies are from the United States wearing overalls. Even Egypt should not be so backward. Chu-Mu appeared at a market in a small town. The locals were selling supplies, while the United States people were buying daily necessities. He felt that the backwardness of this place was abnormal, simply because the transportation used by both locals and people from the United States was only horse-drawn carriages. Not only that, Some vendors also play old-looking radios, and neither the locals nor those from the United States have mobile phones in their hands. Not even in my trouser pocket. Chu Emu's clairvoyance could clearly see that none of these people had any technological products on them, and the most they carried were old-fashioned revolvers. The time is wrong. Chu Emu's eyes flashed. Then there was a flash of light in his eyes. The few sharp-mouthed United States people and local aborigines around them all seemed to be sick at the same time. They squatted on the ground in pain, holding their heads. It's really the wrong time. Chu Mu didn't pay attention to the painful expressions of those people. He just casually read the deep memories of these people and determined the time and place where he was. Egypt is indeed Egypt. But it was Egypt during World War E. There should be nothing wrong with the universe. Chu Mu also searched for information about Red Skull and Hydra from the memories of people in the United States. Hydra during World War E was not a secret organization, but the right-hand man of the Nazis, a huge organization that even people in remote areas heard about. From the memories of these people, Chu Mu did not read the situation of the United States captain. Counting the time, it seems that the United States captain was not born yet at this time. As for this universe, is this the universe that I live in? Chu Mu still has no way to confirm. After all, the era he lives in is still decades away from the current era. Chu Mu didn't know whether the history he would change in the future would affect such a distant period. The only way to verify it means traveling through time and millions of futures. If you are lucky enough. Chu Mu did not choose the wrong universe, but when he entered the universe, he failed to enter the time node that belonged to him. Definitely. It's also possible that this universe isn't the Marvel universe where Chu Mu lives. No matter what, it can only be verified by traveling through time to the future. For someone like Chu Mu who is familiar with many secrets and secret treasures of the Marvel universe, he can actually easily find many ways to speed up the passage of time. Whether looking for the ancient one of this era or finding a few treasures that can travel through time, Chu Mu can easily travel to the future time and space. In fact, if Chu Mu goes one step further, being able to become another life in the level single universe, he can also travel through time by relying on his own strength. The life in the level single universe is basically beyond the constraints of time and can appear at any time node in the universe by virtue of its own ability. Above. However, there are no limitations. It can only be said that the longer the time span, the greater the energy consumption. Tens or hundreds of years are not a problem. Chu Mu is now not too far away from becoming a level single universe. He might be able to be promoted if he persists in this era for a while. The passage of time doesn't seem to affect my gold finger. Chu Mu looked at the almighty eye in his mind. The countdown was still going on, and he could gain a new identity every week in this world. Relying on the accumulation of new identities one by one, obtaining the means to travel through time is also one of the options, and the easiest way is to directly find a place to sleep. It is not difficult for Chu Mu to sleep until decades later. After all, the passage of time will hardly affect his extremely long lifespan. There are many options, however, I can't just leave. At the moment, Chu Mu had no intention of doing that. If you want to travel through time, you can do it at any time, but there are other situations that he needs to stay for verification. He is not sure if he has missed the opportunity by leaving this time node. It was definitely not a coincidence that I was brought to this stage in time. Chu Mu's instinct told him that he had to find out what was calling him. That might be something important. The reason why he appeared in the period of World War E is probably because the thing calling him only existed in this period. It's just that the feeling of calling me disappeared after I entered this universe. Was it blocked, or is that kind of calling only perceptible outside the universe? Chu Mu wants to try and call your own voice. Reconnect. Asterisk however. But found nothing. From the moment he stepped into this universe, he could no longer perceive the feeling of calling. He could only roughly identify that the voice calling him came from the earth in this period. As for whether it was Egypt or not, Chu Mu couldn't tell. He knew that it was definitely not a simple matter to find the specific location. I also have to be careful not to affect the development of history, otherwise it would be fun if this was really the universe I live in. The butterfly effect changed most of the future. Chu Mu thought to herself. He walked into an uninhabited alley, and when he walked out from the other side of the uninhabited alley, the black shirt he was wearing had been replaced by a set of casual clothes. In order not to cause a commotion, Chu Mu can only try to minimize the accidents he may cause. Who knows if he changes his clothes in the crowd, it will cause a large group of people to scream. Then the stories of weird ghosts appearing in Egypt were passed down to later generations. Appeared suddenly before. The reason why it didn't cause any commotion is that Chu Mu probably was in the process of entering the universe and would not be noticed or discovered by anyone in the universe. At least it won't be discovered by ordinary people. Otherwise, Chu Mu's appearance on the street out of thin air should have caused a series of exclamations beforehand. Fresh water. Only £1 a bottle. Us dollars are fine too. A professional guide for 30 years, he has lived in this desert for 50 years. Only 10 grams of gold a day. Delicious apples. They'll be gone once they're sold out. On the street outside, the market looks quite lively. Although compared to more developed cities, the town where this market is located was considered an extremely backward place during World War I. But because there are many gold prospectors, it has become a supply place for explorers, and the local people also make a lot of money from the explorers. British pounds, gold, and USD are all hard currencies today. The most indispensable thing for those adventurers who jump into the desert is money and gold. No wonder these people are all wearing suspenders. This was a popular costume in the United States during World War I. Chu Mu looked at the people from the United States who were dressed similarly to Kun Kun, who had practiced for 2.5 years. He probably guessed it. Why are these people in Egypt? The reason why these people buy supplies in groups is simple. They want to enter the desert to find Egyptian treasures. It is also commonly known as gold mining. Regardless of the fact that on the battlefield during World War I, various countries were fighting in full swing, but it did not affect the so-called adventurers looking for guarantees around the world. It can even be said that it was precisely because of the war that the gold rush became more and more prosperous. After all, countries are fighting so fiercely. Who can spare the time to manage and protect cultural relics? Not only Egypt, but all major ancient civilizations are being robbed during this period. It can only be said that this is a sad era, and it has something to do with the level of education. Many local people who do not have a strong awareness of the protection of their own culture do not even realize that their culture is being plundered. Just like the Egyptian people selling supplies in the market today. In their view, these gold diggers brought them economic prosperity. I don't know. The more valuable things in my home are being robbed by gold diggers in the name of expedition trophies. Decades later, I don't know if these people will feel regretful about this. I want a box of this. Is that mare's milk? Fill me 2 bottles too. Many of the gold diggers in the United States are purchasing things. Most of them are funded by consortiums, but there are also independent gold diggers with brave individuals. It's just that compared to those teams that are well equipped and well staffed, the fate of most individual gold diggers will not be so good in the end. No matter where it is, in the end, only a few people succeed in earning wealth. Especially in Egypt, a place full of yellow sand, gold diggers not only need to be prepared for natural disasters, but also need to be prepared for other greedy colleagues in the wild. Money is what moves people's hearts. In the desert beyond the reach of law and morality. Sometimes treasures are found. It's not a good thing for some adventurers either. Definitely, it's just a little bit of danger, but it can't stop the explorer's enthusiasm for getting rich overnight. This land of Egypt. It has a mysterious and ancient color from ancient times to the present. Many people know that under the long yellow sand, perhaps the lifelong treasures of pharaohs are buried one after another. Those were the rulers of various dynasties. In the eyes of the gold mining adventurers, as long as they can obtain the pharaoh's treasure, they can directly become the world's top rich people. From then on, they will have no worries about food and clothing, and live a beautiful and luxurious life that others will envy. Even the teams working for the consortium can get a lot of dividends from those consortiums after searching for the consortium and finding the pharaoh's treasure. In the years that the war has been going on, there have been too many adventurers who, relying on their brave and bold instincts, have harvested countless treasures from all over the world. The land of Egypt. We have also discovered treasures that shocked the world several times. Because of this, there are so many explorers and adventurers here. A model of wanting money rather than life. Chu Mu had read the memories of many people just now, and had probably figured out the current situation in this place. Those explorers rushed into the desert with their longing for a better life, hoping to gain victory and treasures in the game with the desert. In the end, most of them would end up buried in the desolate human habitation. Just in the desert. After all, there are only a few adventurers who can truly achieve life satisfaction. Among 10,000 prepared people. Even if no treasure is found, only a small number of people can come out alive after reaching the depths of the desert. Only those who have experienced the ruthlessness of the desert will understand. Every treasure hunter who obtains wealth has the bones of countless peers and companions behind him. The desert consumes human life. It will never be considered based on how many survival skills this person has. No matter how powerful a survival expert is, he is still insignificant in front of the yellow sand. Don't these people know how dangerous treasure hunting can be? No, they are clear. However, in the face of countless cultural relics and treasures, even if they know the dangers involved, explorers and adventurers are still coming in an endless stream. They are willing to give up the beautiful life in the city and use their lives as bets, hoping to win a lucky victory in the Egyptian desert. Everyone thinks that they will be the last one. This is human nature. If there is an appropriate profit, people will become bolder. If there is a 10% profit, people will ensure that the congratulatory items are used everywhere. And if there is a 20% profit, people will be more active. With a 50% profit, people will even be willing to take risks. When profits reach 100%, many people will dare to trample all human laws, and 300% profit seekers will even dare to risk hanging their heads to commit crimes. The profit of treasure hunting in the desert is more than 300%. It is enough to make most people lose their minds. After all, the life after finding the treasure is too tempting. Belonging is just a matter of giving it a try. A bicycle can be turned directly into a castle. So rewarding. Naturally, it can make these people flock to it regardless of their lives. My camel is very powerful. I can find fresh water by myself in the desert. Do you need it? 2000 USD. Some vendors also began to sell products to Chumyu. Leave it for those who need it. Chumyu refused all the way. But there were people selling to him all the way. Although Chu Emu's appearance is that of an Oriental, Chu Emu's casual clothes that look very high-end also make many locals feel that Chumyu is taken advantage of. Not to mention a camel. Even the worthless food. These locals are selling them at prices that are dozens of times higher than the cost. Explorers definitely know that these things are expensive, but for the treasures they may find, the money they spend is just a drop in the bucket. All they want is convenience and that the locals will not exclude them. Letting the locals make more money is not to stop the locals from talking. No one is a fool. Everyone has their own calculations. Chu Miu walked along the market. He originally wanted to explore and see if there was any special reason why he appeared in this market after entering the universe. For example, the voice calling him is in the market. In fact, it is not impossible. Chu Miu seems to be just shopping around with nothing to do. Very period streets and dialogue, it also made him feel novel. I want 10 pounds of apples. A male adventurer wearing a suspender is buying fruit. Damn the weather. The wind is so strong today. I have to postpone entering the desert for another day. There was a complaining adventurer stationed at another vendor. His whole body was wrapped like a rice dumpling. He probably couldn't stand the wind and sand in the desert. He even wore goggles for his eyes. There are not a few people from the United States who dress similarly. The weather in the desert area is very harmful to the skin. Even the locals wear linen clothing that can cover their faces to protect their skin. When the wind and sand are too strong, the locals will even wrap their heads tightly in thick linen cloth. Even though the locals are so careful about protection, treasure hunters from out of town are naturally intolerable. Skincare products are also very popular in places like this. Holy crap. There's a guy here. He's not wearing any protection at all. One adventurer's eyes widened immediately after seeing the forbidden grazing. Haha. I guess he is a novice treasure hunter. He will have a better time with the dry and cracked skin. Another treasure hunter next to him looked gloating. They regarded Chu Miu as a fellow traveler, a rookie fellow who didn't know how to protect his skin. After all, in addition to people from the United States, there were also treasure hunters from other countries here. It's just that the United States has the largest number of people. There are also many treasure hunters in Great Britain. After all, the people of these two countries are well-known bandit nations. I think he will die in the desert before he can survive that time. I bet 200 USD. The previous adventurer commented on Chu Miu. I'm not going to bet on this. With this money, wouldn't it be better for me to find a hot girl? You don't know what the women here can do for 100 USD, tisk tisk. The expression on this adventurer's face is very exciting, which makes the people next to him. The companion only felt that his thoughts were wandering. Then you have to take me to see it. The adventurer who had previously commented on Chu Miu swallowed his saliva. The two of them showed smiles that men knew well and left together. They had no intention of reminding Chu Miu that there is no gold to be gained from doing good deeds in a place like this. Moreover, who will remind colleagues? Everyone is competing for the treasure in the desert. For these greedy people, they wish that most of the competitors would die in an accident. A conversation between two adventurers. In fact, it did not escape Chu Miu's ears. They didn't want to remind Chu Miu. Chu Miu had no intention of paying attention to these guys. No matter what, the final destination of most adventurers is death. Who knows when these two guys will die? Anyway, Chu Miu, relying on the authority brought by his identity as Undead Lord, saw the black lines on the foreheads of the two people who were about to die. It was not the woman who died tonight. On the belly is to die in the desert tomorrow. He would not remind the two adventurers who were destined to die soon. The wind and sand are indeed quite strong. Chu Miu took out sunglasses and put them on her eyes. He actually doesn't need any skin protection. For him, this environment is not a very harsh environment at all. The vacuum is also a very suitable environment for the life of level Godfather, not to mention that it is just some relatively dry yellow sand. It's just that he looks more handsome wearing sunglasses. It looks normal here. Nothing supernatural about it. Chu Mu was searching in the market. He originally just wanted to see if there was anything weird about this market. After all, he appeared here directly after entering the universe. Maybe the voice calling him came from this market. It is indeed very possible, otherwise why would he appear here instead of other places? No matter what. This is probably also a weak point in the universe. Chu Emu's will has actually enveloped the entire town area for a long time, but the search of Chu Emu's will did not allow him to find any abnormalities. If it can really call me across the universe, it is probably something extraordinary, and I may not be able to scan it with my will. Chu Mu was making guesses in her mind. He strolled around the market and observed as if he were going shopping. However, Chu Mu never thought about it. He walked around. He actually encountered a scene that made him feel a little bit ridiculous. A guy as thin as a monkey just pretended to bump into him. From the shallow thinking of this thin monkey, Chu Mu learned about Shouhu's occupation as a habitual thief. Shouhu targeted Chu Mu, so he chose Chu Mu as his target. This is wrong behavior. Just when the thin monkey was about to hit him, Chu Mu suddenly activated psychokinesis to trap the thin monkey in place. He looked at the skinny monkey in front of him, who looked frightened and unbelievable. His eyes narrowed slightly, and a playful smile gradually appeared on his face, which made the skinny monkey feel very scary. Let me go. Damn it. What is this? Witchcraft? Witchcraft. The thin monkey in front of me, he shouted in a fearful tone. But no one around him looked at him and Chu Mu. In order to reduce the impact on history as much as possible, Chu Mu made some small manipulations in the thoughts of those around him. It seems that I did not find the wrong universe. Chu Mu recognized the thin monkey, feeling great. He confirmed that he was not looking for the wrong universe. It's just that the time didn't match up, after all. Except for the Marvel universe that was affected by his almighty eye. There will never be a second Marvel universe with characters that should not appear in Marvel time and space. Yes. The thin monkey in front of me. Chu Mu recognized the identity of the other party. A character who should not exist in the Marvel world. Jonathan. Maybe many people are not familiar with this name. But if you think of the guy in the Mummy movie who always likes to steal the property of his companions without anyone noticing, then anyone who has watched the movie, The Mummy, will be able to quickly recall it. Jonathan is not the main character in the Mummy films. Some people can remember the role of Jonathan because of this guy's stealing skills, while some people can remember Jonathan simply because Jonathan is the brother of the movie heroine. Chu Mu is the kind of honest person who still remembers Jonathan's beautiful sister. Man. A character from the dark movie universe. Chu Mu looked at Jonathan, who was bound by psychokinesis in front of him, and was basically sure that this was the universe he lived in. Except for the Marvel universe that is affected by the almighty eye. There will never be such characters that should not belong to the Marvel universe among the major Marvel parallel universes. Same as the DC universe. The Dark Cinematic Universe is also a world that a certain film and television company attempted to build before Chu Mu traveled through time. Only. In terms of popularity and upper limit of power, the Dark Cinematic Universe is inferior to the Marvel Universe and DC Universe. It is a cinematic universe that died midway before it was completed. Most of the extraordinary beings in this universe are monsters, such as Frankenstein, the vampire Dracula, and other folklore. The Mummy series should be the most successful work in the dark movie universe. It tells the adventure story of a group of people in the era of Gold Rush. Compared with the upper limit of power involved in the vampire, Frankenstein, and Mummy series, it is also almost the highest level of power in the movie universe. In 171931 BC, in the city of Thebes, Egypt, the pharaoh's priest at that time, the bald Imhotep, had an affair with the pharaoh's wife Oxuna. Because the matter was revealed, Oxuna had no choice but to commit suicide. Immortan, who controlled the magical power, tried to use evil resurrection magic in the city of death for this lover, thus blaspheming the Egyptian gods. Just as Immortan was performing the soul-calling ceremony in Hamnada city, the pharaoh's pursuers came after him and interrupted the soul-calling ceremony. The monks who assisted Immortan were mummified alive, while Immortan was sentenced to wormbite, which was the most cruel curse and punishment in Egypt. This curse and punishment will make him sink in pain forever. However, but he will never die. Only when his rotting body disappears will Immortan be freed. As Immortan screamed in fear as the sarcophagus closed, the curse was laid, and his evil, vengeful heart grew stronger in the darkness. Until many years later, someone awakened him, and he wanted to use his powerful magic power to rule the world and resurrect his lover again. Have to say, this is definitely a very infatuated villain. The strength level is not weak either. After all, it possesses the characteristics of immortality. In addition to the evil priests with thousands of years of magic power, the Mummy series actually also involves the power of gods. More than one Egyptian god was involved. If we look at the situation in the Marvel Universe, those Egyptian gods are at least level Godfather's beings, and may even be more powerful than level Godfather's beings. After all, these things are integrated into the Marvel Universe by the Almighty Eye, and cannot be judged just based on common sense in the Marvel Universe. Definitely. Chu Mu has no interest in most Egyptian gods, he is only interested in the famous god in the Mummy series. Death God. Anubis. Chu Mu's eyes flickered slightly. He has the identity of Lord of the Dead, and controls the power of death. Naturally, he is extremely interested in this companion power. If Chu Mu remembers correctly, among the movies in the Mummy series, whether it is the Black Book of the Dead, or the Golden Book of the Sun, they all demonstrate the divine power and power of Anubis. There is also the Scorpion King who appeared in the second part. He also made some transactions with Anubis, thus obtaining Anubis's army and part of his power. In the background history of the Mummy, there is a Scorpion King. In 3067 BC, after the Scorpion King failed to attack Egypt, he lost all his troops. He was left alone and sold his soul to the god of hell, Anubis. Then he got an army from hell. Later, after the Scorpion King's wish was fulfilled, his soul was taken away, but the Egyptians managed to seal these secrets. Only. The soul of the Scorpion King and the army of Anubis are still sleeping in a certain area in the desert, waiting for future generations to awaken them. If I can study the power of Anubis, can it deepen my control over the power of death, so that I can enter the level single universe as soon as possible? Chu Mu had something in her heart. Platinum status originally corresponds to level single universe. It can be said that the identity of Chu Mu, Lord of the Dead, has given him the ticket and qualification to become a level single universe being. What Chu Mu lacks now is just the understanding and control of death rules. The power brought by the identities of the Almighty Eye has always been like this. The power brought by Necromancer is similar to the godhead brought by the gold level identity, Raven Messenger. Chu Mu still needs to understand and control the power. Only then can you truly own it. The use of death rules by death god Anubis can definitely accelerate Chu Mu's control of the power of death. It's not that the level of death god Anubis is higher than that of Chu Mu's undead lord. It can only be said that Chu Mu's understanding of death is not as thorough as those death gods who have studied for a long time. Full calculation. Chu Mu is only in her 20s this year. For extraordinary beings, this age is simply too young. Even in the life of level Godfather, Chu Mu is estimated to be the youngest one, and Thor, who has lived for thousands of years, is only a quasi-heavenly father. Compared with most extraordinary beings of the same level or higher, what Chu Mu lacks is not the level of power but the foundation accumulated over time. Let me go, you damn Oriental necromancer. While Chu Mu was thinking, Jonathan, who was bound by psychokinesis, was still yelling at Chu Mu. This guy didn't know whether he should be called bold or timid. He looked scared to death, but he still screamed loudly and inwardly. Perhaps it was to attract the attention of passersby. Unfortunately, the passersby subconsciously ignored this area under the influence of Chu Mu's power. Even if you scream and break your throat, no one will come to save you. Chu Mu was full of malice, looking at Jonathan with a playful look as if a fixing spell had been cast on him. Are you going to tell me to shout, broken throat? This oriental joke of yours is not funny at all. Jonathan is the kind of liar who has seen a lot. I didn't expect to know this joke. Chu Mu was also slightly startled. During World War I in the Marvel Universe, was this kind of cold joke popular in the Dragon Kingdom? Listen, friend. This time I admit that I accidentally offended a necromancer like you, and I am willing to use the watch on my wrist to apologize to you. Let's talk about it and make friends. Can you let me go? Jonathan saw that no one came forward to rescue him. He also sensed something was wrong and immediately forced a smile. Changed a coping strategy. Watch? Chu Mu smiled brightly. He didn't expect to meet someone trying to bribe him. This was something that would never happen in the era he lived in. After all, most people in his era knew that he was a billionaire who was not short of money. Yes. Yes. Swiss product. Most of today's well-known watch brands are actually not well-known by the public, so Jonathan just emphasized that his watch is a Swiss brand. During World War I, Swiss-made watches are representatives of global reputation. You may not know the various brands of watches, but you definitely understand the gold content of Swiss watches. At the moment, Jonathan wanted to use his watch in exchange for his precious life. For a guy who loves money as much as his life, this is definitely a painful sacrifice. To know. Jonathan is the kind of character who wants money rather than his life. He is willing to pay so much, which shows that Chu Emu's witchcraft really scared him. I know. Rolex. Chu Mu glanced at Jonathan's wrist. Yes. Rolex. It's a Rolex. It's worth thousands of dollars. Jonathan did not expect that Chu Mu was a knowledgeable person. A trace of pain flashed in his eyes, but he still hurriedly emphasized the value of the watch. Rolexes are indeed good, but unfortunately, yours is a fake. Chu Mu raised her eyebrows and recognized at a glance that Jonathan's Rolex was a high imitation watch. It is still the kind of high-end imitation with extremely unqualified workmanship, which will get negative reviews if you put it on Pinshishi. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. My watch was exchanged for gold with Jack. Jonathan's voice became louder again. He is very confident in his appreciation ability. What do you think these are? Chu Mu happily rolled up his sleeves, and at the moment when Jonathan couldn't react at all, his arms were covered with Rolex watches. For a billionaire with storage space, it is obviously a very reasonable situation to carry dozens or hundreds of luxury watches with him. What? Damn it. Where did you get so many Rolexes? Damn. Each of your watches is so much better than mine. Jonathan's eyes widened when he saw the large number of watches on Chu Emu's wrist. He no longer cared to think about why someone would hang a large number of watches on their wrists when they went out. He was firmly attracted by the exquisite and shiny watches on Chu Emu's wrist. The design, which is nearly 100 years ahead of the current era, was definitely enough to amaze people during World War E. Jonathan even briefly forgot that he was still bound by witchcraft. No one knows Rolex better than me. Chu Mu shook his wrist and said a joke that only he might understand now. You are so rich. No wonder I could spot you at a glance in the crowd. Oh my god, you were wearing a diamond watch all over your body. So this is the real Rolex. That damn guy Jack. If I meet him again, I will definitely twist his head off and use it as a ball. Jonathan looked as annoyed as he could. Want it? Chu Emu's smile became even brighter. If anyone who has watched The Black Robe is here, they will definitely shudder at his smile. The sun is shining. At first glance, it seems that there is some calculation. Are you going to give me your watch? Jonathan's eyes widened in disbelief, feeling that Chu Mu was teasing him. These watches will definitely not be cheap. If they are sold to those rich guys, they may be able to buy a big villa in London. Maybe as a reward. If you can introduce me to a guide who knows the history and legends of Egypt very well, then they will become yours. Chu Mu is no longer familiar with what a Rolex watch is. Cold. Anyway, after returning to your own time and space, you can get as much as you want. Even the Rolex watch company is willing to give away a full range of watches to billionaires like Chu Mu in order to improve their own brand image. Being able to exchange a bunch of ordinary gadgets for the power of Anubis is definitely a very profitable thing. Chu Mu already had a plan in mind. The voice calling him is definitely not the so-called death god's power, but it won't be a waste to spend some time studying Anubis' power before looking for the voice calling him. Time is the least valuable thing for animal husbandry. Someone who knows a lot about Egyptian history and legends. Definitely. I definitely have someone like that. My sister is an expert who is obsessed with Egyptian history. Yes. She is an expert. She must meet your requirements, boss. Jonathan is indeed a money-minded guy, and he betrayed his sister without any hesitation. And what Chu Mu wants is obviously this result. Definitely, he will not show his understanding of the two Jonathan brothers. Your sister? Chu Mu pretended to be confused. Oscar-level acting is incredibly natural. That's right. As long as it's about Egypt, she can tell you anything you want to know. Jonathan still maintained his immobilized state. But he no longer had the panic at all. He stared directly at Chu Emu's wrist. Those shiny watches made him feel intoxicated. Good deal. Chu Mu lifted the psychokinesis on Jonathan. Jonathan, who was unable to react in time, simply lost his balance and collapsed to the ground. However, even if the fall is not light, but this guy's eyes never left Chu Emu's wrist from beginning to end. If my sister is willing to help me, they are yours. Chu Mu touched those priceless watches on her wrist and they were taken back to another dimension. He's not a perverted person. Just because he really needs a guide to help him find the capital of Decedent with the power of Anubis and the resting place of the Scorpion King as soon as possible. Both places have nodule-like barriers, similar to the space where Reality Gem exists in that abandoned building. Chu Mu cannot fly directly into space for observation, nor can it be perceived from a distance using power and authority. In fact, after Chu Mu came to this era, he stood in the market and looked at the entire desert, but he did not find any extraordinary traces in the desert. It can only be said that Chu Emu's supervision only allows him to observe things in detail, but it cannot see through various seals and barriers like Heimdall. Oh my god. Your witchcraft is so amazing. Jonathan witnessed the supernatural scene again, and his small eyes almost popped out of his head. This guy looks like a monkey with a sharp mouth and cheeks, and I don't know why he has a very beautiful sister. It's just some small tricks, please lead the way. Chu Mu chuckled, and his gaze made Jonathan feel a little afraid. Come with me. I am an honest person. When I say my sister has skills, she really does. You don't know how obsessed she is with the history of Egypt. She happened to be shopping in the market over there. You know, we came from Cairo, and my sister works in the National Library over there. Jonathan's words were somewhat eloquent. He tried to get close to Chu Mu. When he wanted to get close to Chu Mu looked at him with a calm look. The guy immediately shuddered and did not dare to have any bad thoughts. Brother. You must be a very powerful person. I have only experienced the sense of majesty in you from those high-ranking masters. Jonathan became a little in awe of Chu Mu. He took Chu Mu all the way through the market, because he wanted to earn Chu Mu's Rolexes, and he had no intention of taking the opportunity to use Chu Mu. Power. Maybe. Chu Mu also doesn't know whether law authority and divine authority count as authority. In fact, the reason why his eyes had such a big impact on Jonathan was not because he did it intentionally, but because of the natural oppression of high-level beings on lower-level beings. Let me look for it. She should be around here. Jonathan led Chu Mu through the crowd, and soon came to a stall selling old items. This thing of yours has been broken. The most I can give you is $10. Believe me, those gold diggers won't buy these junk things. A young girl with a voice as clear as a lark, wearing a black veil that obscured her face, was squatting in front of a stall selling old items and bargaining with vendors. She is the heroine of the Mummy series, Evelyn. Even though her whole body was wrapped in linen clothing, the thick clothes could not hide her beautiful figure. Hi. My dear sister. When Jonathan saw his sister, it was as if he saw a lot of Rolexes. His smile was extremely bright and his tone was extremely affectionate. Damn Jonathan. What trouble have you caused me again? After Evelyn turned her head and saw Jonathan, the delicate face behind the black veil was still smiling. However, after seeing Chu Mu next to Jonathan, this beautiful girl's expression changed and she remembered all the bad things about her brother. This gentleman. Did he steal something from you? I can help him compensate. Don't make it too difficult for him to get rid of you. Evelyn gave the negotiation $10, carefully installed a small clay sculpture, and immediately trotted over to Chu Mu and Jonathan. She obviously misunderstood the situation between Chu Mu and Jonathan. No, it shouldn't be said to be a complete misunderstanding. After all, Jonathan did want to steal Chu Mu's things at the beginning, and a habitual thief, was indeed caught by Chu Mu. Got it right. It can only be said that Chu Mu is not here to demand compensation. This gentleman. What did he steal from you? Evelyn was first attracted by Chu Mu's outstanding appearance. Her amber eyes lingered on Chu Mu's face for a long time, and then she thought of compensating her brother for being caught doing this. My good sister. You misunderstood. This is my good brother. By the way, brother, what is your name? Jonathan originally planned to fool his sister, but when he introduced her, he realized that he still didn't know the name of Forbidden Shepherd. He looked a little embarrassed and turned to look at Chu Mu. Just call me Stan Chu. Chu Mu said, the Western name attached to his first identity in the Marvel Universe, down-and-out director. Yes. Long time no see. I have even forgotten his name. Chu. He is a close friend I made when I was traveling in the East. Jonathan typically lies without drafting, only. His acting skills couldn't fool his younger sister who grew up with him. Can't you remember the name of your close friend? Easterners. Chinese. Although Evelyn guessed that Jonathan was lying, she couldn't figure out what kind of medicine Jonathan was selling in the gourd. She just looked at Chu Mu with twinkling eyes. Chu Mu nodded. China is also an ancient civilization, even with a longer history than Egypt. I have long wanted to see the terracotta warriors and horses there. Can you tell me what the terracotta warriors and horses look like? Evelyn's eyes were full of brilliance, which was a kind of yearning for ancient civilization. Maybe I could just give you a picture, Chu Mu said. Just from my own alien space. He took out a promotional photo of the terracotta warriors and horses. There were a lot of clutter in his alien space. This was a news photo he had taken from the Daily New York newspaper office. Colored photos. After Evelyn took the photo Chu Mu handed over, her eyes widened in shock. The way her eyes widened was much prettier than Jonathan's. Like a delicate doll. I don't know why the looks of Evelyn and Jonathan can be so different since they are both children from the same mother. The latest in photo colorization technology. Chu Mu is also a person who lies without drafting, but his words can only be regarded as half-truths. The technology of color photos was invented during World War I. It's just that it's still very rare now and has not yet spread to the ranks of ordinary people. Oh my god. They are so beautiful. Evelyn didn't have too much doubt, she just sighed at the clarity of the color photos, and the figures of the warriors and horses shown in them shocked her quite a bit. I must go see them in my life. Evelyn's voice was very firm. In addition to her fascination with the history of Egypt, she also has an extremely strong interest in the history of other ancient civilizations in the world. There will be a chance. Chu Mu chuckled and replied. He knows it very well. If Evelyn and Jonathan had not strayed into the Marvel universe, then decades later, you would have witnessed the splendor of the terracotta warriors with your own eyes. Not only that, this woman even had a chance to face the resurrected Dragon Emperor. This photo of yours is very precious. Let me think about it, you don't look like someone who is short of money. What should I give in exchange for this photo? Evelyn couldn't put down the photos Chu Mu submitted. As she asked, Jonathan also found an opportunity. Just in time. This brother of mine needs your help. Let's talk about business together. Jonathan's heart is full of Rolex. You need my help? Evelyn looked at Chu Mu doubtfully. She is just a weak scholar studying history. What can you do to help the other party? Evelyn's expression was full of confusion. She looked at her brother Jonathan, as if she had remembered something. Her expression immediately became a little exciting. Damn it, Jonathan, are you bragging to others again, saying that we are Egyptian nobles and can help them settle a lot of things? Evelyn obviously thought of some unpleasant experiences in the past, and directly glared at Jonathan. There's something indescribably cute about this girl when she's angry. No. I have stopped using that clumsy deception a long time ago. No. I mean, I have never deceived anyone with this method. Jonathan's explanation just sounds unreliable. Sorry, sir. My brother just likes to brag to others. In fact, we are just travelers temporarily settling in Egypt. Evelyn ignored Jonathan, who was blushing, and she turned to he looked at Chu Mu with an extremely apologetic expression. My name is Evelyn. I currently work in the library in Cairo. You can call me the librarian. The girl extended her delicate palm to Chu Mu. Her skin is very good. Even in such a harsh environment as Egypt, it is still very fair. Maybe it is because she doesn't like to go out much. An ordinary traveler will not become a librarian during the journey. Chu Mu chuckled and shook hands with Evelyn. He also knows Evelyn's situation very well, just like he knows other characters in the Marvel universe. The heroine in The Mummy. The situation is similar to Sky, Kayla, Aunt May and others. They are all characters that Chu Mu was already familiar with before time travel. He still remembered that when he was a child, a certain TV station often replayed the movie, The Mummy, the scene of Immortan's resurrection, and it was really his childhood nightmare. If I can find the capital of Decedent this time, maybe I can also bring Immortan, the 1,000-year-old evil spirit, into my nation of the dead, for me to control. Chu Mu thought to herself. Evelyn was slightly startled after hearing his teasing just now. The National Library of Egypt has the most comprehensive historical documents about Egypt. I can read many unique historical books in the library. Evelyn explained to Chu Mu very seriously. I have been curious about ancient Egypt since I was a child, as if there is something about this history that attracts me. Said. There was a bit of bright luster in Evelyn's eyes. Chu Mu knew very well that the girl in front of her was the reincarnation of an ancient Egyptian princess, and there was definitely something about the history of ancient Egypt that attracted this girl. If Chu Mu remembers correctly, after coming into contact with some ancient Egyptian things, Evelyn was able to recall some memories of her past life in a form similar to The Shining. It can only be said that the medicinal effect of Egypt's Mangpo decoction is not very good. It's not just Evelyn. Other people who have past lives are also prone to recall some memories of past lives, emotionally. Maybe it has something to do with the reincarnation method imposed on these people by death god Anubis. Chu Mu could only make a reasonable judgment in his heart. On the surface, he still nodded slightly calmly, and showed a gentle smile to Evelyn with his extraordinary female affinity. Being able to have something that you are interested in and devote effort and enthusiasm to it is definitely the happiest thing in the world. Chu Mu also spoke out of emotion, with a serious tone in his tone. Ah. You were right. Sorry. I was a little distracted. Well, I was thinking about the document I saw yesterday. Yes, that's it. Evelyn was slightly dazed for a moment under Chu Mu's smile. After coming back to her senses, she immediately hurriedly explained with her face flushed. She tried her best to hide her attraction to Chu Mu's appearance, but her lying skills were simply incomparable to her brother Jonathan's. It doesn't matter. Chu Mu definitely knows what is going on with Evelyn. He already has an extremely outstanding appearance, and now he has the almighty eye, as a reward after completing the silver level status, fiancé of the super ability person, special ability, charisma. As long as it's a woman, everyone will be more or less attracted by the charm of Chu Mu. Evelyn belongs to the type who is not deeply involved in the world, so it is naturally easier for her to fall into Chu Emu's beauty. His current charm is countless times stronger than that of Li Zizi at his peak. Hey, hey, hey. Let's stop chatting. Let's talk about business. Jonathan snapped his fingers several times at this time, directly inserting himself into the conversation between Chu Mu and Evelyn. This time, he was not just anxious. Want to get rewarded by Chu Mu. As for why Evelyn was so blushing, Jonathan, who was quite smart, also knew very well. He didn't want his sister to be abducted by a necromancer. Although this necromancer looks rich, Jonathan does not want to sacrifice his sister's happiness. Chu Emu's outstanding appearance can easily attract bees and butterflies outside. I have already said that I am just a librarian and a scholar. Is there anything else I can do to help you? Evelyn was stunned again. This was different from what she had expected. She originally thought her brother was bragging. After she explained it clearly, everyone would know it was a misunderstanding. He just needs your knowledge. Your ancient Egyptian knowledge makes people sleepy. Jonathan took the lead in answering Evelyn's question. Are you a gold digger? What ancient Egyptian treasure did you find? Evelyn misunderstood again and looked at Chu Mu with a strange expression. You don't know if you don't see it. One look. She was surprised by Chu Emu's casual clothes. She was too focused on Chu Emu's appearance before and failed to notice Chu Emu's out-of-place outfit in time. A pair of thin clothes. Although he looks very stylish and eye-catching. But does this handsome guy in front of him really have no idea how bad the weather in Egypt is? A gold digger. You can probably be considered a gold digger. I'm going to go to an ancient Egyptian ruins. I should be able to find some treasures there. Chu Mu thought for a while. Other gold diggers are after gold and silver treasures. What he pursues is the death power of Anubis. The two are roughly the same? Have you never been to the desert? Did you just fly to Egypt? Evelyn couldn't understand Chu Emu's outfit, so she could only make a reasonable guess, thinking that he was a rich man who had never set foot in Egypt. Although she couldn't recognize the brand of Chu Emu's clothes, Evelyn knew just by looking at the material and texture of Chu Emu's clothes that they were definitely worth a lot of money. They are mostly custom-made in some places. People who can afford this kind of clothes are not the same type of people as most gold diggers. Just arrived. Chu Mu nodded. As for whether it was a plane or not, he felt that there was no need to explain more. He couldn't tell Evelyn that he had traveled through decades of time and arrived at the present, right? Your family background seems to be very good. Whether it is your conversation or your behavior, it shows that you have received an extremely good education. Why come to the desert to die when you have a superior life? If it were other gold diggers, Evelyn would never persuade her so patiently. But after her eyes rested on Chu Emu's handsome face, Evelyn, who was extremely disgusted with gold diggers, still felt that it was a pity that such a handsome guy died in the desert. She has seen many handsome guys, but Chu Mu is the only handsome guy who makes her feel like a deer in her heart and can't take her eyes away. Think of this. Evelyn's face turned even redder behind the black veil. Like a ripe apple. Although it was blocked by black gauze, Chu Mu could still see very clearly. Supervision. Is there a possibility that I won't die? Chu Mu raised an eyebrow. He didn't think the yellow sand in the desert could keep him. If it really brings any danger to him, that would at least require the gods of Egypt to come to the world in person. Don't take any chances. In the desert of Egypt, not everyone can return home with a full load. The cruel desert will not be lenient to you just because you have a rich family and outstanding appearance. It treats everyone equally. It's very fair. The number of gold diggers who die in the desert every year accounts for more than 95% of the number of gold diggers. Do you know how terrifying this desert is? We should have enough respect for it. Evelyn's words were like a rapid-fire barrage, and it was obvious that she really wanted to persuade Chu Mu. My dear good sister. Others just come to ask you to be their guide. Why are you talking so much? Aren't you a walking dictionary that can never be lost in the desert? Jonathan was a little worried that Chu Mu would back down. In that case, his dozens of Rolexes would be in vain, and the villa he planned to buy in the Great Britain would also be in vain. Guide? Evelyn was confused. She didn't expect that Chu Mu would want to ask her for such a thing, but I only took 2 days off, and I don't want to go to the desert to help others hunt for treasures. Evelyn can give full recognition to Chu Emu's appearance, but she abhors the act of panning for gold in the desert. Call it gold mining. In fact, what is the difference between it and tomb robbing? You should think about it again. Your curator is so easy to talk to, so it will be no problem to take a few more weeks of leave. This handsome guy can give us extremely generous compensation. Jonathan tried his best to help Chu Mu persuade Evelyn. There's no use for the money I brought. Evelyn was very determined. She looked at Chu Mu hesitantly, hesitating for a moment, and then she still felt like reminding Chu Mu, most of the so-called guides in this market are actually liars. What they most often do is lead guests away, arrive in the desert and take the opportunity to interrupt. This is a trap that many novice gold diggers will inevitably step on. Seeing that Chu Mu could not be persuaded, Evelyn could only try to give some reminders. Thank you. But I don't think they will take my order if they hear where I'm going. Chu Mu knew exactly what Evelyn's weakness was. He pretended to sigh helplessly, and sighed seemingly casually, and sure enough, Evelyn, who has always been very curious, immediately asked. Where are you going? I've been here for a long time, but I've never heard of any place that these locals don't dare to go. Evelyn's voice was a bit suspicious. The capital of Decedent, the city of the dead, the place the Egyptians call Hamna Tower. Chu Mu's smile did not change, and he said a sentence unhurriedly. He knows it very well. The effect of this sentence on Evelyn was absolutely outstanding. As expected. Just as Chu Mu expected. What did you say? After Evelyn heard Chu Mu's words, she directly widened her big, watery eyes, and her reaction was even more violent than that of a big gray wolf that had eaten a sheep. Evelyn's expression. It's almost like a cat seeing dried fish. Do you know the location of the capital of Decedent? Or do you have a treasure map? Evelyn looked at Chu Mu in disbelief. She was successfully attracted by the place Chu Mu mentioned. For those who study the history of ancient Egypt, no one does not know Hamna Tower, the city of the dead. Hamna Tower is the burial place of pharaohs throughout the ages. There are a lot of rare treasures left by the pharaoh. Countless gold diggers are constantly searching in the desert, hoping to find the treasures left by the pharaohs of the past generations. Unfortunately, the gold diggers have found nothing for so many years. In fact, even Egyptian officials and archaeological experts are searching hard for Hamna Tower, the city of the dead, but no one can find its specific location. I just know a general direction and how to find it. That's why I need a guide who knows the history of Egypt very well. The information Chu Mu knew also came from the movie Before the Time Travel. The information should be accurate, but it was just impossible to lock in a specific coordinates and location. But don't worry. Chu Mu believes that Evelyn can become a qualified guide. After all, this is the reincarnation of an Egyptian princess, and no one has a better chance than her of finding the real capital of the dead. Even according to some explanations in The Mummy, there will be a force similar to fate that will lead Evelyn there. What is the city of the dead? What place are you talking about? Are there a lot of treasures in it? Jonathan looked at the side with a confused expression. He didn't know much about the history of ancient Egypt. After staying in Egypt for such a long time, he had studied all the tricks that could defraud gold diggers out of their money. In terms of serious academic qualifications, Jonathan is better than illiterate. Definitely, the countless treasures, the pharaoh's resting place, and the burial objects are definitely beyond your imagination. Evelyn answered her brother's question. She has no interest in the so-called pharaoh's treasures, she is just very fascinated by the Egyptian past that has been sealed in history. So, she then turned to look at Chu Mu again. Are you sure your source of information is correct? Many people have claimed to have treasure maps over the years, but without exception they are just liars. Just like my old brother. Evelyn was a little suspicious of Chu Mu's words, but she didn't think Chu Mu was deceiving her. Instead, it is believed that Chu Mu may have been deceived by others. I'm not a liar. Jonathan emphasized with a loud expression, his eyes were already flashing. Oh my God. Isn't the place where the pharaoh was buried after his death the emperor's tomb? How much gold must be in it? We must find this place. Jonathan's tone was firm. He was blinded by Pharaoh's wealth. Now I just want to get into the Pharaoh's tomb and move around. The news is very reliable. It comes from a person's instructions before he died. That was a person who actually went to the capital of the underworld. Chu Mu's face was not red and he was out of breath and talking nonsense. The person he was talking about who was dying was naturally the male protagonist of the Mummy series. Regardless of whether the male protagonist has strayed into the Marvel universe or not, now that Chu Mu has intercepted Evelyn, doesn't it mean that the male protagonist is gone? Chu Mu's logical thinking has always been amazing. After speaking seriously to Evelyn, he looked at Jonathan who was eager to try. This guy is already planning to buy a few camels and set off. I didn't think I said I wanted to hire you. Chu Mu knew that Jonathan was a guy who failed in many ways, so he didn't plan to take Jonathan on the road with him. A thief. What role can it play in the desert? As for the behavior of a man and a woman going to the desert together to search for treasures, it is easy for people to think wrongly. I can only say that only people with irregular thoughts would think so. Chu Mu was planning to hire Evelyn seriously to find the capital of the dead. Ah. How could you not take me with you? If you hire my sister, you must hire me. Everyone who sees the pharaoh's wealth will have a share. Jonathan had no doubts about Chu Emu's information channels. For that kind of mysterious place, maybe the necromancer in front of him has special divination skills. He has seen Chu Emu's witchcraft method. That person has been to the capital of the dead. Is he also a gold digger? Evelyn's tone was still a little uncertain, and she began to verify Chu Emu's words. The female scholar didn't feel anything wrong with Chu Emu's behavior of not taking her brother with her. Evelyn also had a tomboyish character in some aspects. Definitely. It probably has something to do with Chu Emu's appearance, so girls will naturally not think of her as someone with evil intentions. The female affinity brought by her charismatic charm is quite significant. No, he was a soldier who strayed into the city of the dead during the war. Everyone else who strayed into the city with him was killed by the masked men in black clothes there. Chu Mu recalled the plot of The Mummy. He answered Evelyn's question in a serious manner. This is his answer. Jean Evelyn nodded in agreement. It must be the tombkeeper who guards the tomb. I have studied the history of ancient Egypt. The pharaohs had special guards to guard their tombs for generations. Evelyn's eyes began to sparkle, and she felt that Chu Emu's words might it's quite believable. That is Hamna Tower, the city of the dead. If it can be found, much of the missing history of ancient Egypt may be supplemented and completed. Just think about it. Evelyn felt extremely excited. What other information do you know? In which direction is Hamnata, the city of the dead? Evelyn spoke as fast as a barrage of words when she got excited. She couldn't wait to explore Hamunata, the city of the dead. What? She has always been very dismissive of gold digging. This is not a gold rush, it's for archaeology. Searching for the missing history of ancient Egypt. That's it. She will also stop Chu Mu from destroying ancient Egyptian cultural relics. This is a just move. Evelyn has already thought about it a lot. Are you willing to be my guide? The corners of Chu Emu's mouth were slightly raised, and the smile on his face was full of ridicule. He knew that sacrificing Hamnata, the city of the undead, would be a big killer for Evelyn. Please hire me. No one is more suitable than me. Even though I have never been a guide, I definitely know this desert very well. Well, as my brother said, I have never lost my way. We will definitely be able to help you find Hamna Tower, the city of the dead. Compared with the beginning, Evelyn's attitude was definitely a complete reversal. She introduced herself to Chu Mu with a sincere face. My sister is right. She is the best guide. If you want her help, you have to hire me too. While Jonathan spoke for his sister, he still did not forget to firmly promote himself. He would not give up a wave of opportunities to become a big plutocrat. Didn't you say you only have 2 days off? Chu Mu seems to be smiling but not smiling. He just wanted to tease the inexperienced Evelyn. The curator is very easy to talk to. Evelyn blinked her eyes and said with a serious face, let alone 10 or 8 days, even if I take a month's leave, he probably won't fire me. After all, other than me, no scholar is willing to take 10 pounds. I work hard in the library with my weekly salary. Said. Evelyn's expression was still a little nervous, fearing that Chu Mu would not want to hire her, so she continued to brag about herself and began to promote herself. Believe me, I am really a living map of the desert, and I can also cook. Well, there is nothing wrong with simple meals. Even if it is just a possibility whose accuracy is not very certain. Evelyn also don't want to miss out on a chance to potentially discover history. When can we leave? Chu Mu raised an eyebrow. His question made Evelyn stunned for a moment before she reacted. Anytime. Evelyn finished speaking. After looking in the distance for a moment, she remembered the weather conditions of the past few days, and her originally eager mood immediately calmed down a bit. But we'd better wait a few days before going out. The wind and sand in the desert won't stop at all now. Evelyn's voice was a bit uncomfortable. She also wanted to leave immediately, but safety must always be put first. I hope we can set off today. I have other things to be busy with. Chu Mu did not forget the voice calling him outside Shunzhou. Is there anything more important than finding Hamna Tower, the city of the dead? Evelyn's eyes widened, thinking that Chu Mu might not pay enough attention to and understand Hamna Tower, the city of the dead. For me, it should be much more important than the city of the dead. Chu Mu chuckled, a voice that could call him from outside the universe. No matter what angle you look at. It is definitely much higher level than the power of death god Anubis. Even the death god Anubis in The Mummy is only a level single universe at best, and cannot call beyond the barrier of the universe. Getting married. What happened in the family? Or inheriting the title? Evelyn had several guesses in her mind, and she showed a slightly embarrassed expression. The wind and sand are so strong. It's easy to encounter sandstorms in the desert, which is very dangerous. Evelyn reminded her seriously. She feels that Chu Mu lacks awe for the desert, which is something that should not happen. Only those who have awe of the desert can survive in the desert as much as possible. This sandstorm is indeed quite big. Chu looked up at the dusty sky, a divine light flashed in his eyes, and the level Godfather's divine power silently enveloped the surrounding large desert. But don't worry, it will stop soon. As Chu's words fell, the raging wind and sand between the sky and the earth suddenly disappeared without a trace. Not only the distant sight became wider, even the sky showed a scenery like a clear sky. Just for a moment, the weather has changed drastically. This immediately shocked the two siblings, Evelyn and Jonathan, with expressions of disbelief on their faces as if they had seen a ghost. Evelyn didn't know what was happening. However, Jonathan, who had seen Chu's extraordinary methods before, quickly reacted. Is this witchcraft? Oh my God, it's a miracle. A blind cat meets a dead mouse. Jonathan's emotion was indeed correct. This was indeed a miracle created by the majestic divine power. Not only he and Evelyn, but everyone in the entire market was shocked. In the market, there were even people shouting in Aboriginal language, and they just prostrated on the ground and kowtowed. The sky was green. Cloudless. There are two white camels advancing slowly in the long yellow sand. Do you really know witchcraft? Oh my God, that's incredible. You just said a word, and then the raging wind and sand stopped. Evelyn was riding on one of the white camels. This is the 68th time I have asked Chu repeatedly to verify the same question. Start with them. About every 10 minutes. Evelyn would ask Chu with almost the same exclamation tone. As a woman whose academic qualifications reached an extremely high level during World War I, Evelyn had always believed in the supremacy of science in the first half of her life. Whether it was the teachers at school or the knowledge she had learned, they all told Evelyn that there would be no supernatural events in this world, and that there must be reasons behind all the unknowns that could be explained by science. However, until Evelyn met Chu, she saw with her own eyes that the wind and sand that were still raging all over the sky disappeared in Chu's words. Is this scientific? Very unscientific. No matter what kind of scientific theory, it could not explain such a phenomenon. Evelyn, who felt that her worldview had been subverted, felt that the world suddenly became dreamy. How she wanted to hear Chu tell her that what happened before was just a coincidence, so as to maintain her harmonious worldview of scientific supremacy. If you can't accept what I said before, then I'll put it another way. Maybe it's because I'm handsome, so this desert responds to my needs. Didn't you say before that even if I am handsome, desert will not show mercy to me, so obviously your statement is wrong. Chu also rides on a white camel. This is a camel that he spent several gold bricks to purchase. Not only is it larger in endurance and physique than ordinary camels, but the white camel also has a lucky meaning in the desert. It only cost a little gold, not to mention buying a very strong camel, which can also add some charm, so it is not a big expense for Chu. On the other hand, the native Egyptian who sold camels claimed that the white camel was the god they believed in, but in the end, his faith could not withstand the impact of 6 gold bricks. This belongs to the power of money, which is indeed a bit embarrassing. Chu was also a little helpless about having to ride a camel through the desert. Although he could look around the entire desert world when he flew into the sky, he could not determine the location of Hamna Tower, the city of the dead. There are no shortage of secrets and knots. He couldn't hold Evelyn and fly in the sky. Let's not talk about whether Evelyn was willing or not. From the information he provided to Evelyn, Evelyn could only fly on the ground based on various references. Things, carefully identify the direction and location. If she were flying in the sky, Evelyn would probably be no more than a headless fly. A living dictionary in the desert is not a living dictionary in the sky. You are so shameless. Evelyn admitted that Chu was indeed handsome, but the statement that the desert also looked at Chu's handsomeness in a different light made her couldn't help but roll her eyes. This girl has a pair of beautiful eyes that seem to be able to speak. Therefore, even if she is rolling her eyes, her exotic and exquisite face looks full of picturesque charm. Thank you for your compliment. Everyone who knows me praises me so much. Chu's smile remained unchanged, and her tone was full of relaxation. The camel was moving forward slowly. He was idle anyway, and teasing Evelyn, an old-fashioned girl, was also a pleasure. You necromancers. Do you need to eat children to increase your magic power? Evelyn suddenly thought of the legend somewhere. She asked Chu abruptly. Chu was stunned. Eat children. What the hell is this? How many times do I have to answer you? That's not witchcraft, it's just some special abilities. Also, I don't eat people. Chu couldn't help but emphasized again. I know, you have explained it, but in my opinion, the special ability you are talking about is mysterious witchcraft. Aren't teachers also born with it? Maybe it's because of genes, or maybe it's because of some mysteries of life that allow you to have abilities that we ordinary people can't imagine? Evelyn spoke seriously. Her final stubbornness was her attempt to classify the so-called witchcraft as an unknown science that could be summarized by science. To some extent, the girl's statement wasn't entirely wrong. Only, that's what you're talking about called a mutant. Chu Mu looked helpless. He even regretted showing his ability in front of Evelyn and Jonathan. The original intention of the grazing ban was just to be able to set off a little earlier, but I really didn't expect that it would cause such a big reaction from Evelyn. It can only be said that compared with the future time and space, there are not so many supernatural events in this time and space now. As intellectuals, the acceptance of such things is probably a bit low. If it were the future Marvel universe, everyone would be amazed at the power of those with super abilities. Even scientists are not surprised by people with super abilities. What is a mutant? Evelyn heard a brand new vocabulary from Chu Mu's mouth, and she opened her eyes wide and asked questions like a diligent student. Two people's camels were traveling side by side. Yes, there were only two people. Jonathan, the habitual thief, was left in that small town by Chu Mu using some little tricks. For an ordinary person to suddenly develop a severe cold, for an extraordinary being like Chu Mu, it is just a matter that can be affected by a thought. Although Jonathan was very sure that Chu Mu was causing trouble, he had no evidence and dared not argue with Chu Mu. He could only make his final insistence while shivering under a quilt. After finding the cauldron, he must be 50-50. Chu Mu and Evelyn gave Evelyn instructions no less than 20 times before setting off. Both siblings seemed to have the habit of repeating the same behavior. Evelyn didn't like gold, but she still agreed to Jonathan perfunctorily. As for whether the gold will be brought back to Jonathan, this is probably an obvious situation. Mutants are just like what you said, humans who have gained super abilities due to genetic mutations within their bodies. After Chu Mu gave a rough explanation to Evelyn, he suddenly seemed to have thought of something again. He chuckled and changed his words again. No, maybe they are not human beings anymore. Chu Mu thought of a classic Marvel joke, which is about whether mutants are human beings. In most people's opinion, mutants should still be considered human beings, because mutants are born as humans and only become mutants if they have mutant genes in their bodies. Before the mutant gene awakening, the mutant was just an ordinary human being. Only after the mutation, there were differences in appearance or ability. Moreover, there is no reproductive isolation between mutants and humans, and they are basically genetically identical. From this physiological point of view, mutants are fully human. However, according to the official statement of Marvel, the creator of the Marvel Universe, in order to pay less taxes, Marvel has continued to characterize mutants as non-human beings. How to say? Just to make more profits. If mutants' peripheral dolls are classified as dolls, which represent humans, they will be subject to an official tax of 12%. However, if mutant is classified as an ordinary toy, Marvel will only need to pay a 6% tax. Ever since, Marvel tried hard to find ways to exploit loopholes, trying to make mutants non-human. As long as mutants were recognized as non-human, they could pay half the tax. A group of creators of the Marvel Universe thought hard, and finally they discovered something. Mutants are mutant creatures. Most of them have huge differences in appearance, and these differences in appearance have nothing to do with humans. Based on this statement, Marvel directly appealed, and the judicial system eventually determined that mutants were non-human beings. All I can say is, it's no wonder that in some parallel universes, Professor X went crazy after watching Deadpool break the fourth wall and learning about Marvel. Professor, can he not go crazy? Gene mutation? And then a person with super ability was born? From what you mean, it seems that this is not an exception. Are you sure you are not kidding me? It is difficult for Evelyn to accept the supernatural existence of Chu Mu, and naturally it is even harder to accept that there is a group with super ability in this world. Even if the super ability of this group comes from genetic mutation, in the eyes of intellectuals like Evelyn, is still no different from a fantasy. If I hadn't witnessed Chu Mu changing the weather before, and also seen Chu Mu putting the purchased substances directly into some kind of special space, Evelyn will definitely think Chu Mu is a charlatan. Definitely. Time will prove that what I said is true. Chu Mu glanced at Evelyn meaningfully. Since this girl has come to the Marvel Universe, she will naturally be able to follow the process of history. Discover how incredible this world is. The existence of mutant began to be exposed to the public at the end of World War E. Definitely, officials from various countries already had some understanding of mutant before this. The Black King, the founder of Hellfire Club, was researching the secrets of mutant for the Nazis during this period, and there was even a shadow of Hydra in it. If Chu Mu's estimate is correct, Magneto at the moment should still be a prisoner in the concentration camp, and I don't know if there will be a chance to meet him in the future. How to say? Chu Mu suddenly thought of a very interesting question. According to the relationship between him and Wanda, if he really meets Magneto in the future, how should he call Magneto?